Chapter 1749. Eteonion has received a lot of attention, but that's all, not too much. After all, no matter how outstanding he was just a low-level divine alchemist. It would take a lot of time for him to grow. For these higher-ups, it was better to pay attention to the more outstanding ones, such as the Divine Lord level or the Heavenly Master level. These were the ones that needed to be trained. The Lord of Heaven level was a reserve army. They just needed to pay attention to them. Even if there were some eye-catching ones, they would at most nod in satisfaction. As for the rest, they just needed to pay attention to them. At most, they would give them extra rewards or recruit them as disciples. Unless they were particularly eye-catching and heaven-defying, they would immediately be recruited as disciples. Obviously, there was no particularly eye-catching type. Eteonion was eye-catching, but not heaven-defying enough. Heaven-defying level, of course, meant that he had some amazing physique or amazing alchemy skills. At present, it was still within the range of expectations. Naturally, no elder would try to snatch it. At most, they would just watch from above. While a bunch of contestants were talking about him, it was time for the fourth round of the competition. No one knew how many stages there were in total, but they wanted to have more stages so that they could catch up. In fact, they were thinking too much. If it was difficult to catch up in front, it would be difficult for them to catch up. Their level was there. Was there any competition that could make them soar? As long as the gap was too big, there was basically no hope to speak of. Especially for those who were only a few points ahead, it would be impossible for them to catch up. With such a big gap, how could they catch up? Unless they all stopped competing in alchemy, then it was possible to surpass them. But in that case, it was undoubtedly a pipe dream. Those who had this kind of idea were basically daydreaming. They were the kind who didn't work hard. Whether it was the medicine god temple or the outside forces, they all had such disciples. They wanted to be opportunistic and wanted to reap without sowing. Kid, you're quite arrogant. Not only did you ignore us, but you also dare to talk back to Princess Little Medicine Fairy. Hey kid, we're talking to you. Are you mute? A few young geniuses surrounded him. Towards the end, a few participants who were truly unhappy with Eteonion walked over. All of them were pretty good, but to Eteonion, he was not interested. Eteonion slowly opened his eyes and glanced at them indifferently. In his eyes, they were just a bunch of brats. What's the problem? Eteonion looked at them and said, I thought you were mute. You look like you have some ability. Do you have the ability to bet with us? Peng Yuan looked at him with a disdainful expression. That's right. Do you dare to make a bet with us? The other slightly plump boy was called Peng Yuan, and people called him Fatty Yuan. The two of them surrounded him. Their rankings were not low, and they were both in the top 10. They had passed the first two tests with full marks. Although they could not get full marks for the third test, they had at least scored 27 or 28 points. Not only were they ranked at the top, but they were also brothers. Their names were pronounced the same, so it was very easy to confuse them. Not interested. If you want to bet with someone, please walk to the side. Thank you. Eteonion threw out these words and continued to close his eyes to rest. If it wasn't for the fact that he had been nagging in his ears for a long time, he really could not be bothered with them. You brat. The two brothers were instantly enraged. They did not expect that they would be ignored. If it wasn't for the fact that they could not fight here, they would have attacked immediately. They were naturally very unhappy that they had spoken rudely to their goddess. Coward. You really are a coward. If you are a man, then compete with us. They could not help but curse, using the most despicable means to provoke Eteonion. A real man cannot be proved by this kind of competition. In my opinion, with your means and bearing, you are not even men. Eteonion looked up at them, then closed his eyes again, too lazy to pay attention to them. You will regret your words. The two of them were so angry that they stamped their feet. When they wanted to say more, they saw the little medicine fairy fly down from the sacred medicine hall and return to her position, ready to compete. Eteonion shook his head. There were really such people everywhere. 2 days have passed. Now, it's the fourth round. Let me give everyone a hint. There are a total of 5 rounds in the alchemy competition, so I hope that everyone will make good use of them, the little medicine fairy said with a smile. There was no problem with the 5 rounds. It could be considered a normal number of rounds. So many things could be seen. Then, the little medicine fairy waved her hand. Dong! That familiar sound once again rang in their ears. In an instant, a group of people cried out in grief. In front of them was a large bell. They did not expect that there would be such a large bell in every competition. The little medicine fairy really liked this bell. Don't be so depressed. This competition is equivalent to a chance for you to make a comeback. This time, the little medicine fairy did not pretend to be mysterious. She stretched out her hand, and the bell flew up. Then, a spirit herb appeared in front of them. This spirit herb was very obvious. It was a golden spirit vine. A long vine wrapped around it, emitting a faint golden light. This was another 10,000-year-old spirit herb. Everyone's eyes lit up, but it was a pity that they could not own it and could only watch from afar. This is a golden spirit vine, one of my companions. It has been watching your competition for a long time and is now hungry. What you need to do now is very simple. Feed it until it is full. The elixirs you feed, it will give you corresponding points. Once it is full, this round will end. The little medicine fairy smiled and said, "So, you must hurry up and quickly refine elixirs for it before it is full. There is one thing I need to say in advance. Even if you do not feed it a single elixir, you will not be disqualified. Don't worry about this. As for the time limit, it will be based on when it is full. When it is full, it will be the time to stop." Such an unimaginable round caused them to be dumbfounded. They did not expect that this round was to feed the golden spirit vine. As expected, when the little medicine fairy took action, each round was more and more bizarre than the previous. Now, she even played this game. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. This meant that they were going to compete in speed. Whoever was faster would get more points. Etienne's eyes narrowed. He looked at the little medicine fairy, then at the golden spirit vine. It was probably not that simple, right? This little medicine fairy was probably hiding something from him. Chapter 1750. The appearance of such a strange competition made them feel a little shocked, but they were even more pleasantly surprised. If it was as little medicine fairy said, then they could really earn a lot of points, and there was no limit. As long as they could satisfy the golden spirit vine, they could earn points, and there was no limit. If they could quickly refine elixirs so that the golden spirit vine could consume a lot of elixirs, then their points would definitely increase. This was a competition to see who was faster and whose elixirs were of a higher grade. However, they did not know how many points the golden spirit vine would give and whether it liked them or not. In short, as little medicine fairy said, it was a chance to turn the tables. As long as they could provide a lot of elixirs, they could catch up. Then the fourth round officially begins. After Little Medicine Fairy announced, a group of contestants immediately rushed to the herb garden outside, and without hesitation, they first harvested the elixirs with the metal attribute. The golden spirit vine was of the metal attribute, so it definitely liked the metal attribute elixirs, so they focused on the metal attribute elixirs. This was the same principle as the big mouth demonic flower. They needed elixirs that matched their appetite to have a chance of passing. They were not fools, so they must have thought of a similar problem. Etienne aimed for another attribute, the wood attribute. While others were frantically looking for the metal attribute elixirs, he first looked for the wood attribute elixirs, grabbed them, and started to refine them. Haha, what an idiot, he actually took the wood attribute elixirs. Pang Yuan laughed at the side. When he saw Etienne taking the wood attribute elixirs, he felt that it was an idiot's behavior. That's right, the golden spirit vine obviously likes the metal attribute, but it took the wood attribute, so ridiculous. Pang Yuan shouted at Etienne, "Boy, no wonder you don't want to bet with us. With this little ability, I'm afraid you won't even have enough clothes to lose to us." The two brothers laughed, picked up a large number of the metal attribute elixirs, and started to refine. Etienne was too lazy to pay attention to them, and followed them to refine. His action also attracted the attention of many people. Some of them were puzzled and disdainful, while others did as he thought, and took some wood attribute elixirs back to try to refine. From their point of view, there was no harm in trying. If they really succeeded, they would have seized the initiative. After all, Etienne had always been able to get high scores. Who knew? Maybe he would succeed this time. In the blink of an eye, Onion had successfully concocted a pill. Amongst all the contestants, he was definitely number one. He did on purpose. He increased his speed slightly, but he couldn't find any flaws. Just as he was about to feed the golden spirit vine the pill, Pang Yuan and Pang Yuan finished refining at the same time, slightly slower than Onion. They had just finished concocting the pills. Without saying a word, they rushed over. Their speed was much faster than Onion's, and they used all their strength to rush out. They wanted to be the first to give their batch of pills to the golden spirit vine. Lord Golden Spirit Vine, these are the pills we refined. Both of them took out several pills. The pills were golden in color and looked very tempting. A rich aroma wafted out from the inside, and it looked pretty good. Apart from their narrow-mindedness, it seemed that they were quite capable. However, when they handed over the pills, the golden spirit vine swung its long vines and knocked the pills out of their hands. Not to mention eating them. It didn't even bother to pick them up. What's going on? Both of them were shocked. The pills they had refined with great difficulty were thrown away like rubbish. It was hard for them to accept. They really couldn't understand why they had been rejected. At this time, Onion stepped forward with the pills. As soon as he handed them over, the golden spirit vine immediately rolled them up and quickly absorbed them. The golden spirit vine didn't have a mouth, so it just used its vines to absorb the pills. However, it finished absorbing them in the blink of an eye. After absorbing them, it was satisfied and tapped the jade plate hanging on Onion's body twice. The score on it immediately changed, 5 more points. If the golden spirit vine could give this batch of elixirs a score of 5, it would be considered very good. Such a change made the two brothers widen their eyes. Before, they had laughed at Onion and said that he was a fool for taking wood attribute pills. Now it seemed that it wasn't Onion who was a fool. They were the real fools. Onion glanced at them indifferently and continued to refine pills. After refining a batch, he would hand it over to the higher-ups instead of refining a large batch at once. Unless he used all his strength to refine pills, he would be too stupid to do so. By the time he finished refining a large batch, the golden spirit vine would probably be full. After all, there were so many participants, and there were still a few hundred left. Even if only a part of them could meet the golden spirit vine's requirements, the number would not be small. Therefore, after refining a batch, he immediately continued to refine the next batch. It looked very stable and not too abrupt. Now, this situation not only made the Pang brothers dumbfounded, but also the participants who refined the metal attribute pills. Some of them were shocked, causing their pill refinement to fail. They were also refining metal attribute pills. Now that they failed, their minds were in a mess. Naturally, they failed to explode the pills. Some didn't give up and continued to take the metal attribute pills to handover. In the end, like the Pang brothers, they were all whipped and the pills flew out. Some are refined wood attribute pills together with Onion were all wild with joy. They didn't expect that their gamble was right. This kid is quite capable. He immediately saw what kind of pill was needed. When Little Medicine Fairy saw Onion's action, she was really a little surprised. He succeeded in one try. She didn't know whether he gambled correctly or acted recklessly. She showed the golden spirit vine, but it was also a misleading phenomenon. After all, the first round was like this. It must meet the other party's requirements in order to succeed. Now it was a mess. The golden spirit vine would only absorb the restraining attribute. According to their previous thoughts, they would follow along, but they didn't know that they would only hit a wall. Onion continued to refine the same batch of pills. Very soon, he handed over the second batch. Originally, he had picked a lot of spiritual herbs, so he could refine immediately after returning. As for the Pang brothers, they had already lost their face. They still had to pick the wood attribute spiritual herbs. Originally, they had been constantly mocking Onion. Now they had become fools. They went to pick the attribute spiritual herbs that they previously mocked. Not only did their faces get slapped swollen, they were completely pulled down and beaten up. The two of them could only silently refine pills. How would they dare to say anything? Fortunately, they didn't bet with Onion. Otherwise, they wouldn't even know how they died. Chapter 1751. After knowing that metal attribute elixirs were useless, they started to refine wood attribute elixirs. It could be said that everyone was refining wood attribute elixirs. For a moment, green light soared into the sky. Under their crazy refining, they all succeeded in getting a high score. The faster they were, the more points they would be able to accumulate. Etienne's speed was the fastest and the most stable. Now, relying on elixirs of high grade, he quickly accumulated more than 40 points. The others were around 10 to 20 points, but he was already leading by more than 10 points. It hadn't been long since the competition started. If he continued like this, he would definitely lead by more points. However, this was nothing to be happy about. He was originally facing a group of relatively low-level Lord of Heaven, while he, a dignified celestial god, was playing with them here. If it weren't for the shortcut to enter the medicine god temple, he really didn't want to do this. It was simply a waste of time. As time went by, the golden spirit vine suddenly flickered slightly. This change was very subtle, and few people noticed it. Those who noticed it thought it was meaningless, so they continued to refine elixirs. Etienne immediately noticed this change, and instantly stopped the alchemy furnace in his hand. The batch of elixirs he had refined before had failed and turned into a pile of dregs. This change was immediately noticed by many participants, but they couldn't help but chuckle in their hearts, thinking that Etienne had failed. Etienne's failure would naturally buy them some time. This kid finally failed. He was so arrogant, but in the end he still failed. What very stable. It's completely bullshit. I thought he would never fail, but it seems that he will fail all the same. Look at his arrogant expression, and he is still seeking defeat. Now that he is seeking defeat, it's simply a complete defeat. They laughed again, thinking that Etienne was really ridiculous, especially his cold appearance, which made them very unhappy. Now that he had failed, they naturally gloated. When Etienne turned around and left, Little Medicine Fairy showed a surprised expression. Did he really see through it immediately? This is too heaven-defying. Etienne came to the edge of the herb garden and started to pick the spiritual herbs quickly. The spiritual herbs he picked were all of the metal attribute. That's right, it was a spirit herb of the metal attribute, not any other attribute. In the past, many participants had suffered greatly because of this metal-type spirit herb. Now Etienne had a metal-type spirit herb, causing the audience to be dumbfounded. They all wondered if Etienne's head had been kicked. He had been determined to be wrong, but he still chose to do it. It was a mistake to begin with, and he even made the wrong choice, especially after he failed. This puzzled him. Why did he make such a choice? After Etienne calmly made his selection, he returned to the field and started to quickly refine the elixirs. The grade of the elixirs he chose was neither too high nor too low. It was considered to be quite suitable. However, his return left the other participants dumbfounded. They didn't know if they should refine together with him. However, he had clearly been judged to not be able to eat it. If he continued to refine it now, wouldn't he be retarded? Thus, the group of people didn't choose to follow him. Instead, they continued to refine elixirs. What is this kid doing? Not only did he fail, he even wanted to take the metal-type spirit herb that was judged to not be able to eat. Could it be that the taste of this gold spirit vine has changed? But I can't see it. Some people thought that Etienne was an idiot, but some people smelled something different. At this time, someone had already picked up the wood-type elixir and went forward. He handed it over like before, thinking that it would be swallowed like before. Who knew that as soon as he handed it over, he would be whipped, sending the pile of wood-type elixirs flying away. This kind of action instantly caused everyone to be dumbfounded. It was really a change of taste. Some people didn't believe it and still chose to continue refining elixirs. After succeeding, they picked up the elixir and went forward again. The result was the same. They were whipped again, and the elixirs flew everywhere, becoming useless elixirs. They could definitely be eaten, but elixirs that couldn't be offered were basically useless elixirs. It really has changed. They were all stunned. There was no movement at all, and the taste had changed just like that. At this time, Etienne had already successfully refined a batch of metal-type elixirs. When he handed them over, the gold spirit vine didn't hesitate to curl them up and quickly swallow them. Then, he gave Etienne 10 points. When this result appeared, the whole audience was shocked. It caused a series of exclamations. No one thought that it would really succeed. In fact, some of the people with higher cultivation had already noticed something. With the subtle changes in the gold spirit vine, they immediately sensed that something was wrong. It was just that they weren't as sensitive as Etienne. Now that it had really succeeded, the gold spirit vine could only take the metal-type elixirs. Immediately, everyone gave up on refining wood-type elixirs and went to find metal-type spirit herbs to refine. Everything was based on Etienne, and they completely followed Etienne's style. Those who had failed before were all full of regret. They didn't expect that it would really change. Etienne could also see that they didn't believe it. Now, they had wasted a lot of time. When Little Medicine Fairy saw this scene, she shook her head, her eyes filled with disappointment. But when she looked at Etienne, her gaze was filled with a bit of curiosity. Originally, there were a few people who had some competition with Etienne, but now, it seemed that none of them could compare to Etienne. They were completely left behind, and even became an existence that followed the trend. It seems that there is no longer any suspense about the first place of this alchemy competition. When Little Medicine Fairy saw this scene, she knew that the first place would belong to Etienne. To be able to completely change the direction of the competition, he was already destined to be the winner. After all, if he was one step ahead, he would always be ahead. The fourth round quickly ended with the gold spirit vine eating its fill. Many of the participants had obtained a lot of points. Among them, Etienne had obtained more than 170 points, 70 points ahead of the second place. Looking down on everyone, there was almost no suspense. In the fifth round, unless Etienne withdrew or did not do anything, he would definitely win. He had obtained high points in 4 rounds in a row. Even if his result in the fifth round was very bad, he would still be able to obtain first place. After the fourth round ended, everyone shook their heads, feeling very dissatisfied with their performance. I am very disappointed in all of you for this round. Little Medicine Fairy repeated her words once again, causing them to be alarmed. What was going on now? Immediately, Little Medicine Fairy gave them an answer. She said coldly, "Did you really think that after the gold spirit vine changed, it would only eat metal-type elixirs?" Chapter 1752. From Little Medicine Fairy's expression, they could tell that the golden spirit vine not only ate the metal element, but also other elixirs. However, they were too lazy to think too much about it, so they just followed Little Medicine Fairy's lead. After all, if they tried randomly and failed, it would be a waste of time. In a race against time, anyone who did that would undoubtedly be courting death. So now, there's a problem, that is to keep chasing Etienne, but Etienne is far ahead of them, and no one can keep up with him. In addition to the metal element elixirs, the golden spirit vine can also absorb elixirs of other attributes. That is to say, it can absorb all the other attributes except the wood element. Little Medicine Fairy was exasperated at their failure to live up to her expectations. You are blindly following the trend. If you were to refine pills of other attributes, or slightly stronger ones, you might be able to get a higher score. But you're refining the exact same pills or pills of similar quality. I really don't know what to say, just based on your actions. I can only say that you're too afraid to try. You only know how to follow others. For example, if you refine a combination of the metal and water elements and a higher grade, you can get a higher score. Refining one is equivalent to several others. That's a very high score, but you didn't even think about it and just kept refining. Is this the level of the Medicine Temple's disciples? I remember when I was cultivating, I already told you that divine alchemists not only need to be steady, but they also need to have a sense of enlightenment, a way of thinking. Only in this way can you break through. If you keep following others' path without thinking, you will never reach a higher level. Little Medicine Fairy didn't stop scolding them. They all lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at Little Medicine Fairy. Etienne smiled. He naturally knew the corresponding problem. If he combined it with other attributes, he could get a higher score. But he was too lazy to do that. With his speed, he would definitely win. There was no need to show off so much. Who would have thought that a group of contestants would follow him to refine elixirs? How ridiculous! Gradually, he felt that participating in this competition was becoming more and more interesting. What was interesting was that he knew the situation of the medicine god temple. They were too stubborn and not easy to change. This was because they had too little experience. If they often went out to experience, they definitely wouldn't have such stubborn thoughts. Most of the time, he needed to be flexible, especially during the competition. What was needed was not stability, but a breakthrough was needed if one wanted a high ranking. However, it didn't do so. They just wanted stability and didn't know how to be flexible. All the contestants felt wronged. How could they tell? If they could, they would have done it long ago. Why would they need to do it together with Etianyan? The little medicine fairy seemed to know what they were thinking and immediately scolded. Do you feel that there is no hint at all? Feeling wronged? There are no hints at all. How am I supposed to refine it? You explain. Little medicine fairy pointed at Etianyan, motioning for Etianyan to come forward and explain. Etianyan immediately became the focus. All the contestants looked up at him, wanting to hear his explanation. Many people were also looking forward to Etianyan saying that it was a wild guess. That would be hilarious. In this way, even if he won first place, he wouldn't win the favor of the little medicine fairy. The little medicine fairy had already said that what was needed was strength, not blind guessing, and even more so not luck. Etianyan stood up and pointed at the golden spirit vine. This can be judged by the luster of its body and the smell it emits. Previously, it was very eager to absorb the effect of the wood element, so I could smell a faint aura of the wood element. At the same time, the golden luster on its body slightly decreased. This means that the desire for the metal element is not high, so it can be judged that metal element elixirs are not within its scope of consideration. Later, it changed. The smell changed and became more complicated. What desired the most were the metal and water elements. If the two were combined, the effect would definitely be better. But I'm a lazy person, so I felt that just relying on the metal element was enough. Especially when combined with my pill refining technique, it would be easier to succeed if I just refined one element. But combining the two elements would be slightly more difficult. The time needed and the failure rate would increase, so it is not worth it. Etianyan analyzed it one by one, causing the contestants to be dumbfounded. They didn't expect that Etianyan would really explain it one by one. Moreover, it was so clear and logical. This made them incomparably shocked. They didn't expect that there would be such a judgment. They felt that there was a slight change, but they didn't expect the change to be so rich, not only from the smell, but also from the luster on the surface. But this change was too subtle, so it was hard to detect. Perhaps they needed to go closer and observe more to be able to see it. This couldn't be blamed on them. Their cultivation was lower. So how could they compare to Etianyan's observational skills? But they didn't take the initiative to observe. This was a confirmed fact. After Little Medicine Fairy heard it, she nodded her head in satisfaction. Did you hear that? This is the ability a divine pill refiner should have. You need to have sufficient judgment. You guys don't even analyze it and just blindly follow the trend. You really don't have any opinions. Now, I will announce that only one person will advance to the next round in this pill refining competition, and that is him. Little Medicine Fairy was so angry that she exploded. She thought that things would get better in the later rounds, but she didn't expect that everyone would become so stupid. She was so angry that she wanted to beat someone up. Now that the results were announced, everyone was even more shocked. There were so many contestants, but only one person succeeded in advancing. Wasn't this a joke? But no one thought that Little Medicine Fairy was joking. If it was really decided, then it would be the first time in the history of the pill refining competition that only one person advanced. In the past, no matter how strict it would not be this strict. After all, it was so strict that only one person could advance. The performance of the previous contestants was completely overruled. It was really frightening. Princess Little Medicine Fairy, this must not be done. The attendants at the side were so frightened that they came over to dissuade her. If it was really like this, then wouldn't it explode? No matter what, some people had to advance, otherwise would there be new blood. All the contestants were also dumbfounded. What happened to the fifth round? What happened to the scores? Now, not only were the scores useless, even the fifth round was gone. They all failed, and no one could advance. Chapter 1753. Generally, in alchemy competitions or other competitions, disciples were selected internally to be promoted. All of this was to add new blood to his faction to increase its strength. Therefore, every selection was more important. Although their cultivation was on the low side, in the future, the mainstay would be maintained by this batch of new disciples. Now that little medicine fairy said that she only wanted Yun, it was undoubtedly an exaggeration. If she really did that, there would be a very serious gap. This gap would last for as long as 100 years, and there would be no new blood joining. For this reason, the deacon and the others immediately panicked. This was simply fatal. If there was a gap, it would be a very serious matter, especially since the medicine temple was self-sufficient. Unlike other forces, there would be a continuous stream of geniuses joining to fill the gap. If there was a gap here, they would have to wait for the next alchemy competition. There was only one alchemy competition every 100 years. It was not a long time, but for cultivation, it could be said to be a race against time. If they could not be promoted, they would not be able to get better resources. Some of the very good geniuses would not be able to enjoy the corresponding resources if they did not advance. This meant that they would waste 100 years in vain, which was a very serious matter. Little Medicine Fairy also realized the seriousness of the situation. She looked up at the many disciples below the stage, each of them looking at her with innocent eyes, feeling extremely wronged. Even if they did not have too many ideas, their ability was considered qualified. It was really too grievous to be rejected just like that. Well, I will give you one last chance, that is a chance to pass the fifth round. I will draw a standard, and if you are below this standard, don't even think about advancing. No matter who tells me, it will be useless. Little Medicine Fairy thought for a moment and finally gave him chance. It was indeed serious that there was a gap, but if they did not meet the standard, she really did not want them to advance. Thank you, Princess Little Medicine Fairy, for giving us another chance. They nodded repeatedly, feeling extremely ashamed. After being reminded by Little Medicine Fairy, they only realized how wrong they were. Thinking about it carefully, it was indeed true. If they kept following in the footsteps of others, how could they improve? Which of the truly outstanding god alchemists was not Maverick? They had to follow their own characteristics in order to display a stronger effect. All right, then we'll rest for 2 weeks. When the time comes, we'll proceed to the fifth round. However, this disciple doesn't need to participate in the fifth round. Come with me. Little Medicine Fairy signaled Yun to come over. There was no need for him to participate in the fifth round. They didn't even need to participate in the fifth round to know who the champion was. Unless Yun gave up, he would definitely be the winner. With such a huge lead in points, coupled with their outstanding performance in the previous 4 rounds, it was impossible for them to fail in the fifth round. Therefore, if Yun was allowed to advance to the next round and continue to participate in the fifth round, he might disturb the other participants. The other contestants didn't have any objections to this result. Yun's performance had indeed exceeded their expectations. He was much stronger than all of them, so they had no choice but to acknowledge him. If they were to participate together, they would definitely suffer a blow and would not be able to help themselves from following the trend. Yun seemed to have some kind of magical power that made them want to follow him. This was a very helpless problem, but they could only choose to agree. Yun shrugged and followed up. It didn't matter whether he participated or not. If he could enter the Medicine God Temple without participating, he would be even more happy. Originally, he came here to sneak in, so he couldn't wait to participate. After Yun walked over, Little Medicine Fairy pointed to the top of the Medicine God Temple and said, "Here, you have to go up step by step. It's not only a test for you, but also a reward for you. There's no time limit, but I hope you can climb up as soon as possible." After that, Little Medicine Fairy flew back to the Medicine God Temple, leaving Etienne to climb the towering stairs. Etienne lifted his foot and immediately felt a resistance coming from above. Sure enough, it was similar to the difficulty of this test. However, the further he went, the more he could feel a constant surge of power, constantly strengthening his body. However, this effect was negligible and could basically be ignored. This difficulty was originally provided for the Lord of Heaven level. At most, a Divine Emperor would have some effect here. A slightly stronger Divine Emperor would probably not have any effect. This Medicine God Temple really pays attention to training new people. Etienne walked up very quickly. This resistance was not difficult for him at all. However, he still had to pretend to climb with difficulty, using a speed that was neither too fast nor too slow. He had made some calculations and felt that only at this speed would he be able to walk up perfectly and not charge straight up. That would scare them. At the same time, when Little Medicine Fairy returned to the Medicine God Temple, a group of elders tried to dissuade her. "Princess Little Medicine Fairy, don't be so easily angered. Young people are like this, eager for quick results. Don't be so strict. If you are too strict, they will be anxious. When they gradually cultivate, it will be much better." Although these elders were not very concerned, they did not want to have a serious gap, which would affect the operation of the Medicine God Temple. That's true, but this is the most basic ability. Sometimes, being strict is a good thing for them. The next time they participate, they will be able to show more outstanding performance. Little Medicine Fairy shook her head and said, "Everything depends on the 5th test. I hope the elders won't try to persuade me." The few elders looked at each other and helplessly nodded their heads. Since the Little Medicine Fairy had already said so, they could only agree. Since they had given the opportunity, it was their own business if they did not fight for it. After all, Little Medicine Fairy's status was at the level of an elder and the next temple master. Especially this time, as the chief referee, how to operate was up to her, and the others really could not intervene. Unless the medicine god intervened, then it would be different. Speaking of which, the new disciple seems to have a good foundation. He can see the need of the golden spirit vine at once. How long do you think it will take for him to come up? Good alchemy doesn't mean good physique. The weakest thing about us divine alchemists is physique. We need to strengthen it. I estimate it will take at least a month for him to come up to the Medicine God Temple. A month? That's a good estimate. When I first came up, it took me more than 3 weeks. A month is not bad. Chapter 1754. Little Medicine Fairy didn't say anything about changing the topic. She also didn't want to be entangled in this matter. She didn't want anyone else to interfere with her decision. While they were discussing, a figure appeared at the door, immediately attracting their attention. What came into view was actually Etienne's figure. For a moment, they were stunned. They didn't think that Etienne would come over so quickly. Naturally, he wouldn't investigate the situation below for no reason. Who knew that after chatting for a while, Etienne had already come up? Although they had chatted for a while, it had actually been a week. In just a week, he had come up from below, which shocked the group of people. What's wrong? When Etienne came up and saw them looking at him in shock, he knew that he had walked too quickly. But according to his estimation, a week wasn't fast, but it definitely wasn't slow. Based on the general difficulty, he felt that a week's time was the most suitable choice. But looking at their expressions, it seemed that he had come too early. Coming up in a week, what kind of speed is this? I'm afraid that Princess Little Medicine Fairy would need more than a week, or even 2 weeks. They were all stunned. They originally thought that Etienne would need at least a month, but this was still considered early. This was considered to be early. Some would need at least a few months, or even half a year to climb up from below. Of course, they had benefited greatly. Climbing the stairs had become a joyful matter. But Etienne's actions had undoubtedly broken the conventional record and reached a new record. Apart from some ancestor-level existences or medicine gods, no one else would be able to reach this record. This is too unbelievable. How'd he do it? Little Medicine Fairy was also shocked. She was in the midst of preparation, but such an unexpected surprise had happened. When Etianyun saw their expressions, he knew that he had estimated wrongly. The higher the stairs, the greater the difficulty. He had deliberately slowed down, but there was one thing he had forgotten to estimate, and that was consumption. The further he went, the more serious the consumption would be. At that time, his speed would naturally slow down. Some of them were even concocting pills to replenish their energy, while others were meditating and cultivating. Etianyun didn't even need to think about resting to refine pills, let alone meditating to cultivate. He simply climbed up without thinking. Actually, most of the time, he would stay on the stairs to rest and meditate. How could he miss such a rare opportunity? Etianyun was an exception. His cultivation was high enough to begin with, but even if he sat on the steps for half a decade, he wouldn't be able to gain any enlightenment. That was why he had come up so quickly instead of staying at the top. Of course, the most important thing was that he didn't need to rest at all. He just rushed forward, and the result was that he scared them. Well, I just kept climbing up and didn't stop. Here I am. It took a long time, right? Etianyun scratched his head. They had been climbing the stairs for a week. Wasn't that long? As a heavenly deity, climbing for so long was truly a waste of time. If this was a long time, then the others would be snails. They smiled bitterly. Seeing such a scene, they were still shocked. Looks like your physique is not bad. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so fast. How do you usually cultivate? How can your physique be so strong? The little medicine fairy sized him up and down, her gaze constantly sweeping across his body, trying to find something from him. But no matter how she looked, she couldn't find anything. Under the protection of the void bloodline, she couldn't find anything. Unless she touched him at close range, there wouldn't be any effect. I usually cultivate normally and then use pills to strengthen my body. It's just that I pay more attention to physique cultivation. Usually, when I have nothing to do, I carry some extremely heavy, profound stones to play with. Over time, I probably refine some. Etianyun randomly found an excuse to explain. Profound stones were actually the most common thing, and they could be found nearby. Not only were profound stones worthless, but they were also very heavy. They were heavier than many other materials. It would be a good choice to use them to train one's physique. But normally, no one would use them like this. The efficiency was too low. Moreover, they were divine pill masters and wouldn't do such a stupid thing. It was too much of a waste of time. They might as well focus on refining pills instead of training their physiques. Physique was something that could be improved in the later stages of cultivation. Then, they could go hunt some dragons or some special race and use their essence blood to refine pills. When the time came, the physique would be improved by several times. It would save time and effort. Why would they do something that was strenuous and unrewarding? So that's how it is. They had strange expressions. Usually they spent so much effort to temper their bodies, but still had such a level of pill refinement. It was really shocking. But you came up so quickly. Did you properly comprehend the things on the stairs? Little medicine fairy frowned. There was no meaning in trying to speed up here. What was needed was to walk up completely. In other words, to thoroughly comprehend at once. That would be the most perfect. Back then, the little medicine fairy had completely comprehended at once and only needed a week's time. She was a true genius. If she just rushed up and relied on brute force, it would really be meaningless. Well, I just comprehended a little bit. Etianyun answered honestly. With so many heavenly gods staring at him, it was easy to tell if he was lying or not. This wasn't something that the void bloodline could hide. Then, I'm too disappointed. There's no point in chasing after speed. If you come up so quickly, you won't get any extra rewards. Little Medicine Fairy was a little displeased. This was undoubtedly a waste. Then should I turn around and walk back? Etianyun pointed behind him. No need. There's no point in doing that. Little Medicine Fairy's expression was as cold as ice. She was clearly infuriated by Etianyun. She had thought that Etianyun would be a little more outstanding. She hadn't expected him to be so insensible. Even if he turned around now, he couldn't go back down. Usually, the first time was the best. Moreover, he wouldn't turn around again. If he turned around and left, he could only say that he would leave immediately. He He wouldn't continue to stay here and comprehend. Etienne shrugged. He didn't care about Little Medicine Fairy's situation. Now that he came in, he immediately observed the situation around to see if he could see anything. There was nothing special about the inside of the Medicine God Temple. It was relatively ordinary. However, the secret was definitely on the inside and not on the outside. Chapter 1755. The Little Medicine Fairy was a little disappointed with Etienne, but on the whole, she still liked him a little more. Anyway, Etienne's performance in the competition was very satisfactory, but there was a big problem with the climbing, which made her feel very unhappy. She was devoted to the Medicine Temple, and it was naturally a good thing to have a genius who knew that he was so careless in this regard, which really made her feel a little disappointed. Although she was disappointed, the overall score was still very high. After all, there was a comparison, so she knew that Etienne was better. Under the leadership of the Little Medicine Fairy, Etienne walked in together. The deeper they went, the stronger the energy was. It was filled with spiritual chi from all kinds of elixirs, which filled the entire Medicine God Temple. Every nook and cranny was filled with this spiritual energy, giving off a feeling of materialization. It could be said that water could be squeezed out of the void. Such a unique environment could only be enjoyed by these strong people. Every breath he took was a kind of enjoyment. Just breathing here could raise one's cultivation. Of course, their cultivation was so strong that the effect was still very limited. When they gathered together, it was certainly not limited to breathing for themselves, but used to operate the Great Formation. The reason why the Medicine Temple was so strong was largely because of the operation of the Great Formation. The 5 mountains were 5 great formations. When combined, it was an incomparably large formation which could fight against strong enemies and let the spirit medicines here thrive. If it was very simple to extract the spiritual chi and then use it, it would be too much. The Medicine Temple would not do such a low-level thing, but extract the spiritual chi and then feed it back to the whole area. This kind of structure made Etienne feel very perfect, but it was still very difficult to lay it out. First of all, he couldn't meet the basic conditions. So many spirit medicines was the most basic condition. There were many spirit medicines in the 3 realms, but such a large number of spirit medicines was still quite rare. First of all, the first compensation for you is here. The Little Medicine Fairy pointed to the small area in front, which was actually a cultivation area. There were many secret cultivation rooms here, where you could practice well. Compensation. Etienne's eyes lit up when he saw the secret cultivation room. It wasn't that the secret cultivation room gave him the desire to cultivate, but that he could hide inside and then sneak out to investigate the situation. If he continued to follow the Little Medicine Fairy, he would definitely not be able to move around freely. That's right, it's compensation. Originally, the compensation for you is very simple. It was either some medicinal pills. If your results were okay and you had some potential, then even if you were unable to advance, you would still be given a chance to climb the stairs and deepen your comprehension. The Little Medicine Fairy explained. The compensation she was talking about was the compensation for the first stage. However, now that Etienne had successfully advanced to the next level, the compensation he had previously thought of was naturally meaningless. So that's how it is. In that case, I will accept the compensation. Being able to cultivate here is quite good, said Etienne with a smile. You can temporarily cultivate in seclusion here. You can stay here for as long as you want. As for the time, just follow my instructions. So, you can cultivate without worry. During this period of time, just stay here and don't leave. If you move around randomly, you will be stopped by the guards. The Little Medicine Fairy pointed at the guard at the entrance, indicating that he should not move around randomly. I will not move around randomly, Etienne added in his heart. I will fly around randomly. After the competition is over, I will come and find you again. After saying that, the Little Medicine Fairy left. It was obvious that she was going to prepare for the competition. The competition hadn't started yet, so he still had to prepare in advance. Even after the competition ended, he still had to wait for the group of disciples to climb up. Thus, it would still take a long time. Etienne randomly chose a secret cultivation room and entered. When he entered, there was always a guard staring at him. It seemed that it would be quite difficult for him to openly sneak out. A secret cultivation room. The concentration of spiritual energy here is not bad. Etienne was very satisfied with this, but it was a pity that he had no interest in it. After entering, he did not hesitate and immediately took out the teleportation divine stone and immediately started the teleportation. With a swoosh, he disappeared from the spot. In the next moment, he appeared in the passageway. The moment he appeared, he immediately hid in the void as if he had never appeared before. The teleportation divine stone was that powerful. It was not easy to enter from the outside, nor could it be used to teleport out. After all, the seal here was very strong. The teleportation divine stone's effect was almost useless. Fortunately, this was an internal teleportation, so there was no such problem. If he opened the door, he would immediately be seen by the guards. Thus, he definitely had to use the teleportation divine stone. After coming out, Etienne quietly moved deeper into the passageway. After so long, he could finally sneak in. It really wasn't easy. As he gradually moved deeper, he quickly saw the guards at the entrance. At the side of each passageway, there was a guard. The security here was very tight. Etienne was not afraid at all. He directly moved forward. The void bloodline at the maximum level was not leveled up for nothing. He easily passed through the guards, as if nothing had happened. Not to mention sensing anything. The guards could not even sense a trace of energy fluctuation. The void bloodline is indeed a divine stealth skill. Etienne shook his head. It was a pity that this thing was already at the maximum level. Otherwise, he would have fiercely increased it to another level. After passing through layers of passageways, he soon met the little medicine fairy. The little medicine fairy was not in a hurry to go out. Instead, she walked into the medicine god temple. When he saw the little medicine fairy, he did not hesitate to follow her. With the little medicine fairy leading the way, it would definitely be easier. After all, if he wanted to go deeper, some areas would definitely be sealed. If he did not open them, he would not be able to enter. When he approached, the little medicine fairy suddenly turned her head and looked over. Etienne's body froze, and he just stood there, not daring to move. The little medicine fairy looked in the direction where Etienne was for a while, revealing a puzzled expression. Strange, why do I feel that someone is behind me, but I don't sense anything? She shook her head doubtfully, thinking that she was hallucinating. Then, she continued to walk inside. Etienne was startled. He did not expect the little medicine fairy to be able to sense something. She was indeed a great genius. The little medicine fairy's cultivation was at the mid-level heavenly god level. It was not very high, but she almost sensed him. Her perceptive ability was really amazing. Fortunately, she still could not find anything after probing, so she chose to give up. Chapter 1756. Etienne followed Little Medicine Fairy all the way forward. Little Medicine Fairy was unimpeded all the way. The guards immediately let her pass when they saw her. But Little Medicine Fairy occasionally turned her head to look back and even walked towards them. After carefully checking several times, Little Medicine Fairy finally gave up. She always felt that someone was following behind, but she couldn't detect it, which made her very confused. But confusion is confusion. She can only think that she is too sensitive, which led to this situation. Etienne is also quite helpless. If he can upgrade his void bloodline, Little Medicine Fairy will definitely not be able to detect him. Do I really need to upgrade the invisibility divine skill? Etienne thought about it and chose to give up. If he wants to make a heavenly god not be able to see him, he needs to upgrade it several times in a row. At that time, the crazy point required is quite amazing. This is also the reason why he is not willing to upgrade it. If upgrading only needs a little crazy point, then he will definitely not hesitate to upgrade it to the maximum level. After all, compared to Void Bloodline, invisibility is the real divine skill. If the two are combined, it is even more invincible. When the invisibility is about to end, he can immediately hide in the void. It is a perfect match. But for the time being, he is confident that as long as he doesn't encounter a medicine god, he can easily avoid detection. In fact, this is indeed the case. Many middle heavenly gods passed by and didn't find his existence. How can they be as sensitive as Little Medicine Fairy, who can detect anything? Along the way, the Little Medicine Fairy strangely asked the passing elders if they had sensed anyone nearby. Those elders naturally shook their heads and said that they didn't sense anything. It is all Little Medicine Fairy's illusion. In their opinion, who can successfully sneak in here? Is this not a joke? The halos that were emitted from the outside had already stopped the cultivators who could sneak in. Etionyan is an exception. He came in openly. The halos had no effect inside. After all, they would only be released to the outside and not to the inside. If it is released inside, then it really makes him desperate. He can't sneak in. That was a truly heaven-defying thing. Even a top-notch void bloodline could be detected. Even the invisibility godly skill could be detected, right? This was probably something left behind by the previous alchemy god. In other words, it was something created by the god emperor. It would definitely be able to see through everything. Fortunately, the Little Medicine Fairy was puzzled, but she still walked inside. After a few turns, the Little Medicine Fairy quickly arrived at the central region. She did not go to a hidden place, but to the central hall of the Medicine God Temple. There was a huge statue there. The towering statue was full of majesty, and a wave of divine power descended from above, enveloping the area. When Etionyan came in, he was almost squeezed out of the void. Luckily, he held on and didn't get squeezed out. This terrifying divine power was undoubtedly similar to the power of a god emperor. It could suppress everything. This was a power that could truly suppress everything. Fortunately, this power was extremely faint and not very strong. The Little Medicine Fairy knelt on the ground and put her palms together, as though she was praying for something. There was no one else near the statue. Normally, no one would come here. Therefore, there was only the Little Medicine Fairy here. It seemed empty. However, when such divine power descended, one would only feel endless pressure, not the slightest emptiness. This is the power of a god emperor. Etionyan looked up at the statue. The vast divine power descended, making it difficult for him to look directly at the statue. If not for the divine power's decline, he would definitely not be able to look directly at the statue. Only now did he realize how terrifying a god emperor was. Even if it was infinitely close to a god emperor, it was still nonsense. Infinitely close to a god emperor, but still not a god emperor. This was the true power of a god emperor. Just a little bit of power was enough to make him feel a lot more pressure. What about a real god emperor? He could probably really control the life and death of this place. He could control this world. Whoever disobeyed him, he could suppress them. No one could stop him. This is the true power of a god emperor. Etionyan avoided the statue's eyes. Just as he was about to look at the Little Medicine Fairy, he sensed a strange aura circulating within the statue. Now, what is this? Etionyan's pupils constricted. He quickly used the appraisal eye and started peeling away the outer layers to look at the innermost core. After looking very deep, he saw a small teleportation array in the central region, circulating an extremely minute amount of energy. If he did not look carefully, he would not be able to detect it. Looking at the Little Medicine Fairy's appearance, he knew that she could not detect it, or rather, she did not dare to desecrate the statue. Therefore, it was impossible for her to inspect the statue from the inside out. This was like a junior facing an elder. They could not inspect the cultivation level of the elder. This was equivalent to being disrespectful. The statue was their ancestor. Inspecting it was a form of blasphemy. Why is there a sound transmission array? Etionyan felt a little suspicious. This sound transmission array was actually very simple. As the name suggested, it could transmit sound to the ears of the people on the other side. However, this sound transmission array was very well hidden. It could be said that it was very hard to detect. If one did not inspect it deeply, they would not be able to detect it. Other than that, There was nothing special about it. After all, there was nothing on it to begin with. But just this point was enough to make Yun suspicious. After all, creating a sound transmission array in the statue was an extremely rude thing to do. He did not know what it was used for. But logically speaking, creating a sound transmission array in the statue was a form of blasphemy. He knew how to use it. If it was used, it would be equivalent to letting the statue speak or send a message. This was equivalent to deceiving everyone into thinking that the statue could speak. Only the ancestor could speak. This was not only deceiving everyone, but it was also deceiving the little medicine fairy and the rest. This is really strange. I wonder who is controlling this sound transmission array. Yun frowned. Just as he was thinking about something, a figure suddenly walked over. At the same time, the little medicine fairy slowly opened her eyes. When she saw the figure walking over, she smiled and said, "Third Elder, you're here. Little medicine fairy, are you here to pray today?" The kind-looking elder walked over with a smile. Chapter 1757. Yun saw that the third elder has the aura of the evil spirit race, which made his heart sink. His eyes carefully probed the third elder's body, wanting to see more clearly what was going on. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't detect the slightest difference, and he couldn't see that the third elder is from the evil spirit race. Just for a moment, he felt a trace of evil chi floating from the third elder's body, but it quickly disappeared, and there was nothing. Strange, did I sense it wrong? Yun frowned, but at that moment, the appraisal I did sense a little bit, but it disappeared in a blink of an eye. Could it be that the third elder was doing something just now, and there's a trace of evil chi on his body? Yun guessed that this should be the case. Either the third elder is from the evil spirit race, or he just dealt with the things of the evil spirit race, causing the evil chi to remain on his body. But this also made him vigilant. If it is really the evil spirit race, then the medicine god temple will be in great danger. After all, it is very likely that the medicine god temple will be annexed by the evil spirit race. This is not something he wants to see. It seems that I have to upgrade the appraisal. The level of the evil spirit race is getting higher and higher. If I don't upgrade it, I am afraid that there's a traitor in the medicine god temple. Yun thought about it and decided to upgrade the appraisal eye. The appraisal eye has not been upgraded for a long time. The main thing is that it was enough before, so there's no need to upgrade it. Now that he felt that the third elder in front of him has the aura of the evil spirit race, if he really can hide it to such a perfect degree, then he will be in danger. It should be said that the three realms may be in danger. If there is a similar evil spirit race in the medicine god temple, then he will be in great danger. When he was ready to upgrade the appraisal eye, suddenly a sweet voice sounded in his ear. Successfully completed the main quest, improved the overall strength of the three realms god realm, reached the true strength of the fourth grade god realm, reached advanced level. Reward, 500. 000 compression crazy point, 500. 000 compression proficiency. Directly upgrade 1 level. All bloodline skills upgrade 1 level. The advanced mission that Yun had set up was completed just like that. Even if it required 15 lower level Empyreans or Empyreans, because the difficulty was halved, the total number of Empyreans required would be more than 20. This meant that the heaven creators that he had roped in previously had reached the required level of loyalty towards him. This caused the number of heaven creators he possessed to increase tremendously. Since there were quite a number of heaven creators, once a portion of them reached a certain level of loyalty, the mission would be completed immediately. This was similar to what he had predicted previously. As long as they relied on the heaven creators, they could directly explode. Now, it was just as he had predicted. With a slight upgrade, completing this task was not difficult at all. In fact, it was even more than what he had expected. Ding! Congratulations to player Yun for successfully breaking through to mid-lesser celestial god. Ding! Congratulations to player Yun for successfully raising appraisal eyes to max level. Ding! Congratulations to player Yun for successfully raising teleportation to the maximum level. Ding! Congratulations to player Etionyun. You have successfully raised your invisibility to 1 by 1. The levels increased rapidly. Whether it was bloodline or divine skills, all of them could be upgraded. It's just that some of the levels were too low. Some of them were directly upgraded to the maximum level, saving a lot of crazy points. The main thing that made him want to vomit blood was the leveling up aspect. If his cultivation was a little higher, it would undoubtedly be very cost-effective. But now that it was a mandatory leveling up, once it was completed, he would immediately get the reward. If he could accumulate this leveling up, it would be a good choice. It doesn't seem to be a loss. Etionyun noticed a line of small words on the side, valid for lower celestial god stage. Seeing this line of words, he felt a little more comfortable. Otherwise, he would have suffered a loss. For example, if he used it again after reaching late stage upper celestial god stage, wouldn't he be able to directly break through to celestial emperor stage? However, he was too naive. In fact, it could only be used at lower celestial god stage. After a series of leveling up, Etionyun felt extremely wonderful. His ability suddenly improved a lot. Originally, he wanted to level up the appraisal eye, but now it was upgraded, saving him a lot of crazy points. It takes a lot of crazy points to level up the appraisal eye. Now that it was upgraded for free, he really saved a lot of crazy points. It seems that all the levels are maxed out, but crazy mode is not maxed out. It can even be said that crazy mode does not upgrade at all. It is completely ineffective. It seems that crazy mode is an exception and does not conform to the rules. However, it is quite good to be able to upgrade other divine skills and bloodline. Of course, there is no way to upgrade it if it is maxed out. Ding! Receive main quest, Unify Kai Yuan World. Completed, Reward God of Kai Yuan World. This reward sounds quite domineering, but he doesn't know how long it will take to unify the Kai Yuan world, or to break through to God Emperor. Maybe everything will be completed, otherwise with his current strength. How can he complete the unification of the Kai Yuan world? Especially since he did not take down the Medicine God Temple, and the evil spirit race has not been completely driven out. What is this Kai Yuan world? Is this world called Kai Yuan world? Etionyun thought for a while, and said with a wry smile, "You don't even let me break through to grade 5 God realm, and you want me to unify the Kai Yuan world? Isn't this step a bit too big?" Etionyun felt that this quest is indeed a bit exaggerated, but it is exaggerated. It is not impossible to unify the world directly. Immediately, he did not think too much, and immediately turned his eyes to the third elder, and immediately detailed information appeared in front of him. Yao Yuli, the third elder of the Medicine God Temple, has a high reputation, controls great power, and is also in charge of this area, and also the maintenance of the statue. Note, this person's soul has been replaced with the soul of the evil emperor. Because of his excellent concealment, it is difficult to detect. It is difficult to detect unless you are a god emperor, unless you use your soul to forcibly detect. Otherwise, you will not be able to detect any trace. When the detailed information was listed, it really shocked Etionyun. The soul of the third elder Yao Yuli has been replaced. This is really shocking. Those cultivators who were controlled before, but only their souls were controlled. In fact, they can be saved. As for this Yao Yuli, his soul was directly replaced with the evil emperors. Chapter 1758. How on earth did the vile emperor do it? How did he manage to infiltrate to this extent? Etionyun's heart skipped a beat. He knew that there must be something wrong with the Medicine God Temple, but he didn't expect that even such a powerful elder could be controlled. If it was like heavenly god Torrential Cloud, who was a spy sent here long ago, the significance would be different. Yao Yuli, who was as powerful as a superior heavenly god, was replaced, and his soul completely changed. No wonder it was so hard to detect. After all, the soul was the most difficult to detect. If one had the bloodline of the evil spirit race in his body, he could easily detect it. However, the soul was the most difficult to detect. It could only be detected through physical contact. Yao Yuli's status was extremely high, so it was impossible for him to be touched, let alone detected. Therefore, it was not a problem for Yao Yuli to stay here. Even the powerful alchemy god would not be able to detect the slightest trace. As long as he didn't touch him, it was impossible to detect him. In particular, Yao Yuli was a true powerhouse of the medicine god temple who had existed for a long time. No one would suspect him. At least, little medicine fairy didn't suspect him at all. She was very respectful. Third elder, I'm here to pray. I heard that the patriarch will issue a decree, so I came to pray. Little medicine fairy answered honestly. Yao Yuli was in charge of this area, so he knew what was going on. After learning about it, Yao Yuli smiled kindly. I see. It seems that the medicine god temple master has told you. It's not a secret, so it doesn't matter if you know. The main thing is that there won't be any response until the critical moment, so we didn't announce it to the public. It's better for us to know about such a big thing. But it doesn't matter if you know about it, just don't spread it, lest it causes some chaos. We don't want our disciples to know that they are always under the protection of the patriarch. We need to have a sense of crisis. With the protection of the God Emperor, there wouldn't be any sense of crisis. But Etianya knew that it was all bullsh*t. Yao Yuli made it up, or to be more precise, it was made up by the evil emperor. He probably controlled everything himself. I understand this point. I will not spread it. Little medicine fairy nodded her head heavily. After hearing Yao Yuli's confirmation, she completely believed him. But what do you want a petition for? If it's serious, I can help you try. Yao Yuli maintained his kind smile, but in Etienne's eyes, it was getting more and more sinister. After all, this was the evil emperor's soul, and everything was just an act. If it weren't for fear of chaos, the medicine god temple would have been conquered by him. First, he would slowly stabilize the medicine god temple. When the outside was occupied, he would occupy the inside. Everything was so perfect. Actually, it's very simple. The evil spirit race outside is so arrogant, especially when the evil emperor brought many evil spirit races to continuously attack other forces. If this goes on, I'm afraid that the forces outside will be swallowed up. At that time, only our medicine god temple will be left, and I'm afraid that it will be swallowed up. The little medicine fairy voiced out her worries. Therefore, I have been thinking about whether or not I should go out and help them resist the evil spirit race together. After all, a long time ago, we did not go out to help, causing the outside world to always think that we are cowards, unwilling to go out to protect this world, always let foreign enemies invade. Make me feel very uncomfortable. Our medicine god temple is not a coward. The little medicine fairy repeated the discomfort in her heart again, hoping to get the understanding of the ancestor. But now listen to Father, this is the order of the ancestor. Let us remain neutral. Since there is a divine decree with the protection of the ancestor, I am at ease with the situation of the medicine god temple, but I still can't solve the problem. Why do we always remain neutral? What the little medicine fairy said shocked Etienne, and his good impression of the little medicine fairy immediately soared. He thought that no one had thought about it. It turned out that someone had thought about it. Perhaps not only the little medicine fairy had thought about it. It's just that this so-called ancestor has ordered them to remain neutral, so they can't act on their own. This is the intention of the ancestor. How can we judge the intention of the ancestor? We just need to follow it and not act recklessly. Perhaps this is a change in the situation, a kind of intention to let the evil spirit race replace the outside forces. Even the ancestor can't change it. Yao Yuli's voice became stern, and he even criticized the little medicine fairy. Therefore, we only need to listen to the intention of the ancestor. Don't do anything else, so as to offend the dignity of the ancestor. Yao Yuli was extremely strict. It seemed that he was blaming the little medicine fairy for having such an idea. This kind of idea must not be allowed. After hearing this, Etienne immediately laughed. This guy spoke righteously. If he didn't know that the deity was the evil emperor, he would really be deceived. What ancestor? It was simply a trick of the evil emperor to deceive people. Third elder, but I still want to ask the ancestor. Want him to issue a divine decree and tell me the real reason. The little medicine fairy was still a little firm. She wanted to listen to it before giving up. Yao Yuli looked at her in silence for a moment, shook his head, and sighed. Well, as the next temple master, you have the right to do so. Then we will ask the ancestor now. Generally speaking, the ancestor will not issue a divine decree, but you should be an exception. After all, you are the next temple master. After saying that, Yao Yuli knelt down, and the little medicine fairy next to him also knelt down. Respected ancestor, the next temple master, the little medicine fairy, come forward and ask the ancestor to issue a divine decree. Tell her the reason why the medicine god temple remains neutral. Yao Yuli, as the messenger of the ancestor, began to help pray. The little medicine fairy was also extremely respectful. She really believed in it and did not think that it was fake. After pretending for a while, Yao Yuli raised his hand slightly, and at this time, the sound transmission array inside the statue began to operate. After a moment, a divine voice came out from the statue and echoed in the hall. The next temple master, you are really quite young. Since you are here for this matter, then I will tell you the reason. The evil spirit race's attack is the will of the heavens. As long as we do not provoke them, they will not invade. Therefore, we only need to remain neutral, and when the time comes, they will divide the area for us to live, so there's no need to worry. The so-called God Emperor's voice was indeed released by the sound transmission array, and it was transmitted under Yao Yuli's control. Not only the voice, but the statue also constantly released a divine light. It was really a bit of pressure. It seemed that the sound transmission array could not only transmit sound, but also release a little power, but compared to the power of the God Emperor, it was still worlds apart. Chapter 1759. He actually said that the evil spirit race's invasion was the will of the heavens, which made Etianyin want to beat him up. This was simply bullsh*t. It was fate. It was quite easy to deceive people. The main thing was that it was quite effective to use this statue. Originally, the statue had always been releasing the pressure of a divine emperor, so when he heard the voice from below, it really did seem to be coming from the statue. It was very credible. If not for the fact that Etianyin already knew the situation, he would have really been deceived. The will of the heavens. The invasion of the evil spirit race was actually the will of the heavens? Ancestor, this junior really does not understand why. The little medicine fairy actually dared to ask such a question. She really had quite the guts. It seemed that the little medicine fairy's personality was like this. No matter what, she had to get to the bottom of the matter. This is a long story. This emperor only found out about the situation when he broke through to the Divine Lord realm. The evil spirit race is not an expert of this world, but an expert from the outside world. They are strong and invincible, so the best way is to obey. This is the best way. Blindly resisting will only lead to your own destruction. This emperor has been keeping you neutral for a long time. As long as you remain neutral, this emperor will be able to protect you. Otherwise, even this emperor's strength will not be able to withstand the evil spirit race's attack. These words were extremely realistic, causing the little medicine fairy to be stunned. The evil spirit race is so powerful that even the ancestors are unable to resist. Ancestor, you are a divine lord, an omnipotent divine lord. The little medicine fairy found it hard to believe that such a situation would occur. The divine lord had always been rumored to be invincible existences. No matter what kind of strong enemy they were, they could be killed in one move. Now, her own ancestor could not even deal with the evil spirit race, which was very different from what she had thought. The real situation is that the evil spirit race is stronger. They are really the will of the heavens. I can't say anything more than that. Remaining neutral is the best advice I can give you. I can't go back for the time being, so I can't protect you properly. Thus, I can only remain neutral. As for what the other powers think, you don't have to care. I believe you know the principle of survival of the fittest. Next I'll master, this emperor will stop here. It won't be easy to relay the message back. If there's nothing important in the future, don't summon me again. As soon as he finished speaking, the fake voice disappeared completely, and everything returned to silence. The little medicine fairy knelt there in silence, not knowing what to say for a long time. Little medicine fairy, do you know what's going on? The attack of the evil spirit race is unstoppable. The ancestor did this to protect our medicine god temple. Yao Yuli sighed and said, "What should be clear is already clear. As for the rest, think about it carefully." Yao Yu immediately got up and left, ignoring little medicine fairy. He wanted her to think about it by herself. Before he left, the corners of Yao Yuli's mouth curled into a sinister smile, as if everything was under his control. Yi Tianyun was watching from the side. He didn't expect to see the whole truth. As expected, this was all evil emperor's doing. It was all because of him. If the elders of the medicine god temple knew the truth, would they explode? Obviously, they would definitely explode, and they would hate the evil spirit race. At that time, it would be a piece of cake for them to form an alliance. How can I tell them? Yi Tianyun, who was hiding in the void, turned his eyes to the little medicine fairy. It seems that I can only take a risk and suppress this girl first. Immediately, he quietly came to the side of the little medicine fairy. The little medicine fairy seemed to be stunned, sitting in the same place, thinking about something. She could sense that there was someone behind her before, but now she couldn't feel it at all. At this time, Yi Tianyun dragged the little medicine fairy into the void. After the bloodline upgrade, it was not a problem to drag a few people in, but in terms of concealment, it was definitely not as good as him alone. What? The little medicine fairy was shocked. By the time she reacted, a surge of energy had already entered her body and sealed her from all directions. It actually temporarily suppressed a portion of her strength, causing her strength to drop from the intermediate heavenly god level to the heavenly venerable level. Although it could not completely suppress her power, suppressing it to the heavenly master level was enough to control her. "Don't be nervous," Yi Tianyun whispered in her ear. "It's you?" The little medicine fairy was shocked. She knew who this voice belonged to. Wasn't the new disciple who had brought him before? Sure enough, when Yi Tianyun turned around, she saw that familiar face. She was stupefied. To be able to enter the void and even have the power to suppress her, how could he still be a heaven monarch? He was simply at the heaven god level, and a very strong one at that. "You're definitely not a disciple of the Divine Medicine Temple. Who are you?" The little medicine fairy quickly calmed down. She knew that it was impossible for her to escape. Her power was suppressed to the heavenly master level. It seemed very strong, but in the face of Yi Tianyun, who could suppress her power, there was no way she could struggle. "Of course, I am not a disciple of the Divine Medicine Temple. I have an identity, I don't know if you know." Yi Tianyun pulled off the mask on his face. He must have disguised himself to come in, otherwise, he would be in trouble if he was recognized in the future. After pulling off the mask, the little medicine fairy exclaimed, "You are the lord of the heavenly cloud territory. It seems that I am quite famous. Even Princess Little Medicine Fairy knows me." Yi Tianyun smiled, not surprised. The Divine Medicine Temple remained neutral and didn't go out, but it didn't mean that they didn't know what was going on outside. This was the same as the Fecta realm. The more secluded they were, the more they needed to know what was going on outside. "Of course I know. I defeated the evil emperor and killed so many evil spirit race people. How can I not know?" The little medicine fairy's expression was still not very good. "Lord of the heavenly cloud territory, why did you sneak into our place? No matter what your purpose is, this action alone is enough to make the Divine Medicine Temple your enemy." The little medicine fairy didn't have a good impression of Yi Tianyun at all. Originally, she had a good impression of him because he dealt with the evil emperor. Now that she sneaked into the Divine Medicine Temple, how could she still have a good impression of him? "Will you really be hostile to me no matter what your purpose is?" Yi Tianyun looked at her and smiled faintly. "What if I told you that it was not your ancestor who sent the message, but the evil emperor? Or that the soul of the third elder has been replaced by the evil emperor? He also set up a sound transmission array in your statue. What do you think of his purpose?" Chapter 1760. Yi Tianyun's words shocked the little medicine fairy to the point of being dumbfounded. These words were too stimulating to her, and she couldn't wrap her head around it for a moment. Now, how is this possible? The little medicine fairy retorted after a moment, feeling that it was inconceivable. Nothing is impossible. Do you really think that your ancestor can pass down a divine decree? And even through this statue, you really have a lot of strength. Yun said indifferently. Of course, you won't believe anything I say now. After all, there is no evidence in front of you, so you definitely won't believe me. Especially with my identity as an intruder, it's even more impossible for you to believe me. Shortly after, Yun grabbed her and stepped on the void to fly upwards. In the blink of an eye, they arrived behind the statue, which was also the back of the sound transmission array. The sound transmission array was in this area, and it was impossible to see through it on the surface. If it could be seen, it would have been discovered long ago. This is the statue of your ancestor. Normally, you don't even dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect, let alone destroy the statue to investigate the situation inside. Yun poked with his hand, causing the little medicine fairy to turn pale in fright. She wanted to stop Yun from destroying the statue, but how could she compare to Yun's speed? Yun poked with his hand and easily poked a small hole on the statue's surface. At the same time, he dug to the side, creating another empty area. At this time, the little medicine fairy saw that there was actually a hollow area inside. It was impossible for a statue to have a hollow area. Furthermore, it was made of extremely expensive and rare materials, so there wouldn't be a hollow area. If there was a hollow area, it was very likely that it had been modified. The area in front of her was obviously modified. She took a closer look, and then her pupils shrank. There really was a sound transmitting array in this hollow area. This sound transmission array was quite well hidden and was even inside the statue. There were also several concealment arrays outside to conceal the aura inside to prevent it from being discovered. It was done perfectly in all aspects, but it was still discovered by Yun. His appraisal eyes did not have an undeserved reputation. I'm sure you've already noticed that this is the sound transmission formation. It's inside your ancestor's statue. I don't think I need to tell you how to use this thing, right? Yun said calmly. Of course, you can say that I secretly came here to set this up. You chose to deceive yourself and not believe me. Yun was an intruder, so it was possible that he was the one who set up the sound transmission formation. This was a very normal way of thinking. If that was the case, Yun was really helpless. I believe you. The little medicine fairy said after a moment of silence. Oh, it seems like you still believe that I didn't do it? Yun smiled. Indeed, if it were any other elder, they wouldn't believe you when they're angry. But I believe you. You didn't do it. After all, during this period of time, or rather for a very long time, there won't be any disciples coming to pay their respects. Only elders or attendants are qualified to enter. The little medicine fairy looked at him and said, although you can disguise yourself and enter, you still can't achieve the same appearance as the elders, and your aura can't be similar. Especially since this is a big project, it's not easy to complete. There's only one possibility to deceive the guards and the third elder, who is in charge of this area. It's either the inside or the third elder. The little medicine fairy's analysis was very reasonable. Other than a few attendants, the only other person in charge of the statue's maintenance was the third elder, Yao Yuli. Yao Yuli was the most in charge of this aspect, so it could be said that the statue was under his maintenance. Looks like this saves me a lot of trouble. I originally came here to investigate the reason. I wanted to investigate why you didn't form an alliance and why you didn't resist the evil spirit race. It wasn't because you wanted to snatch something or possess something, Yun said with a smile. Now it seems that you've been tricked by the evil spirit race, and you've been playing with them all this time. When you really believe these words and choose to be neutral, at that time, when the evil spirit race completely occupies it, I'm afraid they will completely swallow you all. The little medicine fairy's beautiful eyes were already filled with anger. If that was really the case, they had been deceived for so long and had even been disguised as their ancestor. Just thinking about it made them incomparably angry. I already believe this sound transmission array. It can be considered a great piece of evidence. However, the third elder soul would be replaced by the evil emperor. One must know that the third elder is extremely powerful and has almost never gone out. Especially being possessed by a soul, this is even more difficult. The little medicine fairy was even more puzzled about this and found it hard to believe. Almost never gone out. These words are not absolute, right? It means that he will still go out. Etienne said indifferently. Think about it carefully. Did the third elder return for a period of time, or something like that? The third elder hasn't returned for a long time. The little medicine fairy carefully recalled. After a moment, her expression became more and more unsightly. Before the first battle of the God Emperor, he seemed to have gone out for a period of time. If you add up the time, it will not exceed half a year. In less than half a year, his soul will be successfully possessed, and it will be so perfect. Is this possible? Nothing is impossible. There is a great formation called the time formation. In half a year, it might be expanded to a few years, a few decades, or even 100 years. Etienne said in a deep voice, however, this is not considered evidence. If you really want to see evidence, you will have to investigate his soul. As long as you investigate his soul, you'll be able to find out everything. It should be said that if you investigate a little, you don't even need to search his memories to know what his soul is. The evil emperor's soul could be easily probed. There was no need to search any memories. After sensing the aura of the soul, she found that it corresponded to the evil emperor's soul. This is a kind of blasphemy. If it isn't, it will be very troublesome. How did you find out? None of us could. The little medicine fairy was very calm. She did not dare to act recklessly. Probing the soul was a very private matter. It cannot be casually probed. That would be very disrespectful. If I said that I relied on my eyes, would you believe me? Etienne said with a faint smile. Of course, I think you definitely won't believe me. After all, even your father and so many elders couldn't see through it. How could an outsider like me see through it? However, I can guarantee with my life that this is absolutely the case. If I lie, I will never be able to reincarnate. Chapter 1761. You can tell, little medicine fairy was a little puzzled. Even her father could not tell. Etienne's cultivation was not as strong as her father's. How could he tell? This made her feel a little skeptical. However, when she heard Etienne swear, she believed him a little more. Yes, I can see that. Besides, you said before that other than Yao Yuli, it is very difficult for anyone to make a move here. You should be able to guess the reason. Etienne said. Little medicine fairy pondered for a moment before saying, all right, but I do need you to cooperate with me in order to expose him. Correspondingly, your life will be in danger. You have to think about this carefully. If there is no problem after the investigation, I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to leave. I've already thought it through. As I said earlier, if there is any falsehood, I will never be able to reincarnate. However, it's useless to say these words. If there is any falsehood, I will be at your disposal. Etienne said resolutely, I am the leader of the Alliance, the domain master of the three realms' divine realm. Just this identity alone is enough to have some weight, right? The evil emperor's soul could be sensed with just a little investigation. There was no difficulty at all. Therefore, it was impossible to hide. As long as he investigated slightly, the truth would be revealed. However, this process would not be smooth. In order to prevent himself from being investigated, the evil emperor would definitely do all kinds of things to prevent himself from being investigated. He would have to rely on little medicine fairy's help. At that time, not to mention investigating, the medicine god would probably slap him to the ground. If this doesn't have weight, then I really don't know who does. After little medicine fairy finished speaking, she thought for a while and nodded. All right, it's decided then. Now that you said it, I really believe you. If that's really the case, then it's an extremely serious matter. At that time, we in the evil spirit race will not rest until we are dead. The evil spirit race had not only deceived them, but also blasphemed their ancestor. They even pretended that their ancestor had given them an order, which made them extremely angry. Not giving up until one of them was dead was considered light. If they didn't completely destroy them, they probably wouldn't give up. All right, then I'll pretend to leave now and come back to visit. You'll be the one to introduce me to the medicine god palace lord. Tianyun immediately finalized the plan. He had to get the little medicine fairy to cooperate in order to carry out these steps. Otherwise, if he had come alone to visit, let alone this main hall, he probably wouldn't even be able to enter any of the better temples. The rules were as such. A neutral existence would not talk to the other domain masters. At most, they could come in to exchange for some resources. Apart from that, there was basically nothing they could do. Therefore, even if he knew the secret, he still needed to see the person before he could reveal the situation. If he spouted nonsense outside, he would probably be chased out. The little medicine fairy nodded, looked at him, and said, "Then you should leave now." "Little Princess Yao Xian, are you not going to help me leave?" Tianyun shrugged and said, "With your help, I can save a lot of effort. Otherwise, it would take me a lot of effort to get out slowly. It's not that simple to enter." He couldn't use the teleportation godstone to leave directly. There were circles of energy surrounding the medicine god palace. It was difficult to use the teleportation godstone to leave. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said that. The little medicine fairy was stunned and said in a daze, "Seeing how you sneaked in so easily, I thought you could leave as well." After a while, Tianyun released the little medicine fairy and transferred him to the little medicine fairy space. This was the best way to get out of this place. The little medicine fairy brought him directly to the outside area. The journey was naturally smooth, and no one stopped her. It wasn't that everyone couldn't leave. Empyrean-level existences could still enter and leave as they pleased. Those with too low a cultivation level wouldn't be allowed to leave. The medicine god palace didn't have much contact with the outside world, but it didn't mean that no one could leave. After all, there were many things that the medicine god palace didn't have. They could only go out and search for them. All right. After the little medicine fairy released Tianyun, she stared at him and said, "This is the general plan. There might be changes in the process. When the time comes, it will depend on our ability to adapt. If you're right, then the medicine god palace will completely change. If you're wrong, then the medicine god palace won't change and you'll die." The little medicine fairy wasn't worried that Tianyun would escape. Since he had already said so, she believed that Tianyun definitely wouldn't escape. In your heart, do you hope that this matter is true or false? Tianyun asked. "It's true." The little medicine fairy replied without even thinking. "I don't want the medicine god palace to remain neutral. I don't want the world I live in to be invaded by enemies from the outside world. Therefore, I hope that this matter is true and that the evil spirit race is lying to us." This so-called neutrality had reduced their interactions. Many disciples could only stay in the medicine god palace and had no way of contacting the outside world. This made the little medicine fairy very puzzled. She even felt that it was very unreasonable. However, this was the wish of her ancestor. She could only choose to obey. Now that she knew that everything was caused by the evil spirit race, perhaps this was an opportunity for change. The final effect would definitely be extremely disgusting. After being deceived by the evil spirit race for so long, how could she not feel disgusted? Correspondingly, it would bring about a complete change to the medicine god palace. The little medicine fairy would fiercely thank the evil spirit race. Naturally, the way to repay them was to completely destroy the evil spirit race. "All right, as you wish." Tianyun indicated for the little medicine fairy to return first. The plan would begin later. The little medicine fairy nodded and turned around to return. After a period of time, Tianyun flew to the entrance. Just as he arrived at the entrance, he was immediately stopped by the guards. "Who are you?" The guards sized him up with a vigilant expression. "Don't be nervous. I'm here to make a deal," Tianyun said with a faint smile. "It's a very simple spiritual medicine transaction. This should be fine, right?" "Which faction do you belong to?" the guard asked as a matter of routine. "Divine realm of the three realms," Tianyun said truthfully. "Divine realm of the three realms?" The guards were startled, but they still nodded and said, "All right, come in." As long as they were not from the evil spirit race, they could basically enter at will. In any case, they were all here to make a deal. Especially when it was only Tianyan alone, it was impossible for him to overturn the heavens, right? Therefore, there were definitely not many people who could enter to make a deal. Only a small number of people could enter to make a deal. More than 5 people were basically not allowed to enter. Tianyan easily entered and was then brought to the trading hall. It was specially set up near the entrance. There was no need to enter the 5 mountains at all. It was just at the outermost area. Chapter 1762. In this trading hall, the people who received Tianyan were naturally some deacons. They came up to him and asked him directly, "Welcome, Lord Tianyan. What do you want exchange for?" The deacon who came was very polite and looked up and down at Tianyan. The domain lord of the 3 realms divine realm was Tianyan, and he was very famous in the entire divine realm. After all, not only was he the alliance master, but he also defeated the evil emperor. All these achievements were amazing. They had to pay more attention to such a famous territorial lord. They wanted to see what kind of existence the legendary Tianyan territorial lord was. "Actually, I don't want to exchange for anything. I just want to see the drug god and form an alliance with you." Tianyan directly stated his intention. After hearing this, the deacon's face suddenly sank. "Lord Tianyan, didn't you understand the rules of the Medicine God Temple before you came here? The Medicine God Temple does not accept any alliance and will only remain neutral. If you want to discuss something like an alliance, I'm very sorry, but please leave." "What about just seeing the Medicine God Temple Master?" Tianyan asked with a smile. "No, unless you have some extremely precious treasures, you can't see him." The deacon shook his head and said, "Of course I have extremely precious treasures. Please take me to see the drug god." Tianyan smiled. "What precious treasures are you talking about? Please take it out and let us have a look before we make a decision." The deacon still refused to let Tianyan go. He had to identify it in person. It showed that there was still a chance to see the drug god, but he needed to take out some rare treasures. Of course, it was possible that the one who would see him in the end would only be one of the elders, not the drug god. Of course, even if he really saw the drug god, he could directly say that there was something wrong with the statue or Yao Yuli, and he would be slapped away. No one would believe his nonsense, especially the other forces. What about the reincarnation grass of life and death? Tianyan casually made up a treasure. Reincarnation grass of life and death. Their expressions changed, and they became a little excited. "Then, can the Tianyan region lord take it out for us? As long as you see the reincarnation grass, you can immediately go see the alchemy god." The reincarnation grass of life and death was extremely rare. Legend had it that after consuming it, even if one died, they would be able to reincarnate with their memories and be reborn. This meant an extra life, so it was naturally an extremely rare treasure. Of course, he didn't. He was just making it up. The deacon also wanted him to take it out for a look. Otherwise, he would not let him go. "You don't have the right to see it. If you show it, it will cause the spiritual energy of the reincarnation grass to leak out." "It's not worth it," said Tianyan, shaking his head. "But this is a necessary rule. If you don't show it reincarnation grass, do I have the right to see it?" At this time, the little medicine fairy walked over from the side with an indifferent expression. "I'm an elder here and also the next hall master. It shouldn't be a problem for me to take a look, right? Princess Little Medicine Fairy." When the deacons saw the little medicine fairy, they all stood to the side respectfully. "Oh, so you're the next hall master. Of course, that's not a problem," Tianyan said readily. "Then follow me to the appraisal." The little medicine fairy smiled and gestured for Tianyan to follow her. The other deacons looked at each other and naturally did not stop them. The little medicine fairy's authority was higher than theirs. She could do whatever she wanted, so it was not a problem for her to do the appraisal. Then they went to the appraisal room and came out after a while. "There's no problem with the appraisal. I will now bring him to the hall master of the medicine temple." When they were outside, the little medicine fairy would not call the alchemy god father, but the hall master of the medicine temple. The deacons nodded and looked at Tianyan with shining eyes. They did not expect Etionyan to really have the reincarnation grass of life and death. It was an extremely rare item. Judging from its rarity, it could probably be exchanged for very good treasures or other spiritual medicines and the like. According to the grade, the reincarnation grass was equivalent to the 8th level, close to the 9th level. It was quite heaven-defying. The 9th level was the highest level in this world, but it only existed in legends. In fact, this was just a plan they had arranged before. First, they used the reincarnation grass as the starting point, and then the little medicine fairy would come to appraise it. In this way, they could naturally bring people up. Otherwise, they would not be able to bring people up at will. Even the little medicine fairy would have to give others an explanation. Along the way, the little medicine fairy did not say a word to Etionyan. She just led him to the medicine temple. When they arrived at the medicine temple, the elders were very puzzled when they saw unfamiliar faces. Why would an outsider come to the medicine temple? After the little medicine fairy's explanation, they suddenly realized that they had come with the reincarnation grass. That was the most important thing. So many elders were asking about it as soon as they returned. This was just as they had expected. If they wanted to come in and cooperate with the act, they had to be prepared. At this time, the elders all came to see the reincarnation grass with their own eyes. It's the reincarnation grass. I haven't seen it in years. I wonder who will take it. I think the first elder might take it. After all, it's difficult for him to break through, and there are some shortcomings that can't be fixed. It would be best if he could be reincarnated. That's possible for the first elder. That's great. With the reincarnation grass, the first elder might be able to break through and become the next god emperor after the medicine temple master. But if that's the case, Princess Little Medicine Fairy, they whispered to each other. After a while, they suddenly thought of the Little Medicine Fairy situation. The first elder's advantage was obvious. He was also a super genius. He could have become the temple master, but due to some shortcomings, he could only remain as an elder. If he could be reincarnated, it would be different. He would definitely be able to break through again and have a higher chance of becoming a god emperor than the Little Medicine Fairy. In this way, the Little Medicine Fairy really had no chance of becoming the temple master. Etionyan almost laughed out loud. If the first elder knew about this, he would definitely be overjoyed. But the truth was that there was no reincarnation grass. If he knew the truth, he would probably vomit blood. Only in this kind of situation could the many elders follow up to the end. This was just as they had planned. They needed more spectators. Chapter 1763. As more and more elders arrived, it could be said to be a majestic sight. All of them wanted to see the true appearance of the grass of life and death again. At the same time, they were happy for the great elder. If the great elder had the reincarnation grass, he would definitely improve a lot. It was a pity for the Little Medicine Fairy, but it was not a bad thing for the Medicine God Temple to have one more expert. In terms of ability, the great elder was indeed better than the Little Medicine Fairy. In terms of physique, the great elder was not as good as the Little Medicine Fairy. It was not because of the medicine god's body. However, the position of a hall master was not something that could be fulfilled just by relying on one's physique. There were still many things needed, such as prestige and various aspects of talent. For example, the great elder had already touched the threshold of the emperor god, but he took the wrong path. Unless he could start over, it would be difficult for him to become an emperor god. Just this point alone was enough. Wasn't becoming an emperor god more important than the medicine god's body? Therefore, when they saw the reincarnation grass, they all wanted to have a look. Under the lead of the Little Medicine Fairy, they passed through the passage and came to the area where the statue was. If they wanted to see the medicine god, they had to pass through the statue. After all, the statue stood in the central area, and if they wanted to go deeper, they had to pass through this area. When they came to this area, Etionyan stopped and did not continue to walk forward. Hey, wait a minute. Etionyan reached out and motioned for them to stop. Lord Tionyan, what's the matter? The Little Medicine Fairy also stopped and looked at him with a puzzled face. I feel that there is something wrong with this statue. I don't know if my feeling is wrong, Etionyan said with a frown. Impossible. This is the statue of my ancestor. How could there be something wrong with it? Lord Tianyun, if you say that, it is disrespectful to our ancestor. The little medicine fairy's voice became serious, and she looked a little displeased. Her acting was so realistic that Tianyun could not help but want to pat her thigh and praise her for her good acting skills. It seemed that she was really angry at him. After hearing this, the other elders were also very dissatisfied with Tianyun. Yes, what are you saying? What's wrong with the statue of our ancestors? If you say that, you are being disrespectful to us. That's right. Heavenly Cloud Territorial Lord, even if you're powerful, you can't be so rude. What's wrong with our ancestor statue? Could it be that it's fake? One by one, the elders gathered around, all wanting Tianyun to give an explanation. What happened? At this moment, Yao Yuli walked out. Seeing the group of elders here, he felt very puzzled. But when he saw Tianyun, his face darkened and he blurted out, "It's you." These words immediately attracted the attention of Tianyun and the little medicine fairy. The other elders did not feel that anything was wrong. What me? Elder, have you seen me before? Tianyun squinted at him. There was no doubt that a very simple sentence had exposed him. The little medicine fairy also heard it. She was very sure that Yao Yuli could not have seen Tianyun. Even if he had heard of Tianyun, it was impossible for him to have seen Tianyun. Even if he had really seen Tianyun, what did he mean by shouting these words? Just these two simple words allowed her to understand a lot of things. In her heart, she believed Tianyun's words a little more. She felt that Yao Yuli had really been replaced. I haven't seen you before, but I have seen you on some records. You are the domain lord of the three realms, quite famous. I didn't expect that the domain lord of the three realms would also come to our medicine temple as a guest. Yao Yuli smiled slightly, and his expression returned to normal. Everything was so watertight. It seemed that he had explained it, but he could not hide the surprise he had before. So that's how it is. Tianyun smiled indifferently and shifted his gaze to the statue and said, "What I want to say is very simple. I feel that something is wrong inside the statue. Like there's a special kind of energy fluctuation inside the statue. I am very sensitive to the fluctuations of the type of array. So I feel that there seems to be some array inside the statue." Impossible. There is no array inside our statue. It is nonsense. If we carve an array on the statue of our ancestors, it is a blasphemy to our ancestors. Immediately, an elder retorted, thinking that Tianyun's words were very unreliable. On the other hand, Yao Yuli's face became very ugly. "Oh, I have this kind of feeling. If you don't believe it, I just mention it casually. Under normal circumstances, there is no array inside the statue, and it is indeed a kind of blasphemy. But I feel that there is an array. If you don't believe me, you can explore it." Tianyun shrugged. "Can the domain lord of Tianyun guarantee it?" Little medicine fairy said sternly, "This is a kind of blasphemy. If there is no array, you are being rude to our ancestors." "Of course, I can guarantee it. If you don't believe me, you can go and see for yourself." Tianyun gestured for them to explore it. "Okay, I will go and explore it now." Little medicine fairy was ready to fly up to explore the statue. At this time, Yao Yuli quickly stopped in front of little medicine fairy and said sternly, "How dare you? I didn't expect the domain lord of Tianyun to be such a person. Princess Little Medicine Fairy, you must not pay attention to him. This is a kind of blasphemy to our ancestors. The ancestor statue cannot be touched. It is a kind of blasphemy to our ancestors." Looking at Yao Yuli's nervous expression, Tianyun wanted to laugh. He said it so righteously, but in the end, he just didn't want others to know. Little Medicine Fairy's heart was cold. From Yao Yuli's words, he was completely sentenced to death. Even if she didn't explore his soul, she was sure it was true. After all, she already knew that there was a sound transmitting array above. Looking at Yao Yuli's nervous expression, there must be something fishy. "Third Elder, I don't intend to touch it. I just want to fly up and check. If there is no array, the domain lord of Tianyun must apologize." Little Medicine Fairy said sternly. I will go up and check. I have always been in charge of this place. Yao Yuli didn't dare to let little medicine fairy go up. Seeing that she insisted on going up, he could only stop her. There is no need to trouble the third elder. I brought him here, so I will handle it. Little medicine fairy said nothing and turned to fly up to the statue. Yao Yuli hurriedly wanted to stop her, but it was too late. Little medicine fairy quickly flew up and explored all the way up. Finally, she came to the back of the sound transmitting array. When she was about to break it, Yao Yuli stopped in front of her and said in a deep voice, "Princess Little Medicine Fairy, it seems that you don't believe me. As the guardian of the ancestor statue, I must be the one to check." Chapter 1764. Third Elder, you are indeed the manager of the statue, but this statue doesn't belong to you. It belongs to everyone. Just because you're in charge of this place doesn't mean that you are in charge of everything. Can I check the statue now? Little Medicine Fairy's tone was extremely cold. She was already convinced that Yao Yuli was the evil emperor. However, there was no evidence, and the other elders didn't believe it, so they had to do what they had to do. No, this is blasphemy against the ancestors. Yao Yuli refused to give in and stopped Little Medicine Fairy from checking the statue. What a joke. I just want to check the condition of the statue. Why can't I check the status of the statue for the ancestors? I believe that all the elders here understand that we respect the statue very much, but it doesn't mean that touching it will be blasphemous. Third Elder, you are wrong. Little Medicine Fairy's tone was cold as she stared at him. Yes, Third Elder, if Princess Little Medicine Fairy wants to check, then let her check. After all, Heavenly Cloud Domain Lord was brought here by Princess Little Medicine Fairy. It would be best for her to solve this matter. Checking the ancestor statue is far from blasphemy, right? So, every time the disciples come up to touch it and pray, it is blasphemy? That's right. Third Elder has gone too far. The ancestor built this statue not only to let us remember it, but also because he wanted to be with us forever. All the elders were puzzled. Even if Yao Yuli was the guardian, he couldn't say that, right? It was like an alchemy boy in a herb garden. He could always manage the herb garden, but the elders couldn't even go in and pick the spirit herbs. Yao Yuli's expression turned ugly. He didn't expect to be forced to this extent. He could only say in a deep voice, "All right, Princess Little Medicine Fairy, feel free to check it." "Thank you, Third Elder." Little Medicine Fairy began to check along the way and quickly locked onto the area behind the Third Elder. The area where Yao Yuli was standing was right in front of the sound transmission array. It was obvious that he deliberately blocked this area. "Third Elder, please step aside. There is still one place that we have yet to inspect." Little Medicine Fairy signaled Yao Yuli to leave. Okay. Yao Yuli stood to the side. He could not stop Little Fairy Medicine from inspecting. Otherwise, he would feel guilty. He only hoped that the Little Medicine Fairy wouldn't be able to find out. With so many concealing formations there, as long as they weren't heaven-defying, they could be shielded. But the Little Medicine Fairy had already seen it. How could she not sense it? Yeah, there's some energy fluctuation here. Little Medicine Fairy stretched out her hand and poked forward. With a dong sound, that fragile surface was blasted apart, revealing the sound transmission array inside. Before Etienne left, he had specially rearranged it, making it look exactly the same as before. Thus, this was the second time he had destroyed it. What? There really is a formation inside. After a brief inspection, they could clearly see that there was a sound transmission array inside the statue. Third Elder, why is there a sound transmission array here? Little Medicine Fairy turned her head to look at Yao Yuli and said in a deep voice. Yao Yuli also revealed a shocked expression. Looking at the sound transmission array, he said, "I don't know. All this time, I have only done simple maintenance and did not carefully inspect the interior. I didn't expect that there would be a formation inside. Could it be that it was set up by our ancestor?" Etienne sneered as he watched from below. This heretical emperor was really good at acting. Did he think that he could completely clear his name just like that? Third Elder, it seems that your memory is a little off. This statue was erected after our ancestor passed away to commemorate him. At that time, Our ancestor had already left, so how could we have set up a sound transmission array? What a joke. Little medicine fairy sneered. She had already begun to be vigilant and was prepared to seize it at any time. From the correspondence of the information, it was extremely inaccurate. No hall master would erect a statue for themselves. This was similar to Tianyun, who would not allow others to erect statues for him. Only those who were extremely fond of authority would erect statues for their people to revere. At least, the ancestor of the Sacred Medicine Hall did not like this. It was only after he left that the next hall master would erect a statue. No matter what, the ancestor was a god emperor, so it must be remembered. Therefore, they specially took a treasure left by the ancestor and embedded it in the statue, so that it could emit the majesty of a god emperor. But now, Yao Yuli said that it was left by the ancestor. Wasn't this a joke? It was not that Yao Yuli said something wrong, but when he took over Yao Yuli's body, there was a slight deviation in his memory, so he did not devour all of his memories. I remembered wrongly, but I really don't know what happened. Yao Yuli smiled. If it wasn't for Princess Little Medicine Fairy, I really wouldn't have known that there was a sound transmission array here. Third Elder, that's not quite right. You have always been in charge of the statue, and after it was built, you have been in charge of it. You don't even know that? Little Medicine Fairy looked at him coldly and said, I suspect that this sound transmission array was set up by you. Yao Yuli, also known as the Evil Emperor, would be a fool if he still did not know the situation. However, he did not panic and maintained a calm expression. Princess Little Medicine Fairy, don't you think that's too much? What evidence do you have to prove that I set up this sound transmission array? Yao Yuli said in a deep voice. I have been here to protect the statue. How can you say that I set it up? That's too unjust. Besides, I have been out. Maybe it was another elder or someone else who set it up. Isn't it too presumptuous to say that I set it up? The evil emperor would definitely not admit it easily. Whoever admitted it would be a fool. The other elders began to whisper. That was true. Yao Yuli did not stay here all the time, so there was still a chance for others to set it up. But what was the point of setting it up? However, many people had already sensed a little. With this sound transmission array, wouldn't it be the same as using the ancestor's statue to transmit messages? While they were making all sorts of guesses, Tianyun stood up and said, Third Elder, why do I sense a familiar aura from your body? What aura? Yao Yuli looked over impatiently. Right now, he wanted nothing more than to slap Tianyun to death. Right now, he was stuck between a rock and a hard place, and he had to use all sorts of methods to cover it up, especially when it came to transmitting messages. He was afraid that he would not be able to do it in the future. The aura of the evil emperor. I sense the aura of that old rival from your body. May I know what's going on? Tianyun directly threw out a heavy bomb that completely exploded among the elders. Chapter 1765. What did you say? The elders looked at Tianyun in shock. They couldn't believe what Tianyun had just said. They could sense the evil emperor's aura from Yao Yuli. What was going on? Could it be that Yao Yuli had a great battle with the evil emperor? But that didn't make sense. If there had been a great battle, they would know. I sense the evil emperor's aura from your third elder. It seems to come from a deeper area, such as here. Tianyun pointed at his head and smiled. It should come from his soul. I wonder if the third elder had a great battle with the evil emperor recently. Bullshit, Yao Yuli said angrily. I have been staying here all this time. Where did the evil emperor's aura come from? We kindly invited you here, but you are slandering me. Slander you? Tianyun said indifferently. I'm just telling the truth, just like the sound transmission array. I sensed something strange here, so I told you. In the end, it really happened. Now I sense my old friend's aura, and it came from your soul. Usually, when this happens, you're either being controlled or possessed. I wonder which one you are. Everything was under his control. He had planned everything in detail before he came here. The evil emperor was definitely resisting and denying everything, but it was meaningless. Everything was going according to his plan, and everything was progressing smoothly. Speaking of which, the fact that our ancestor is able to release the divine decree all this time, I feel like it has something to do with this voice transmission formation. Perhaps someone is controlling the voice transmission formation, pretending to be our ancestor and giving us orders. The manager of this place is the third elder. The heavenly cloud territory lord said that you have the evil emperor's aura, and the evil emperor told us to avoid the evil spirit race. As the manager, we don't know that there is a sound transmission array here. If we check it carefully, we can sense it. We respect the evil emperor, so we don't check it. As a guardian, we don't know that we are being manipulated. How do you explain that? The elders who had heard the divine edict stood up one by one. Only a few elders with high positions knew about the divine edict. They began to have great doubts about Yao Yuli. You actually believe the words of an outsider? Can you believe it? He wants to divide us and destroy our relationship. Yao Yuli stared coldly at Tianyun and said, "If you don't have any proof, then you are slandering me." It was also an insult to the medicine god shrine. If you don't give us an explanation, our medicine god temple will be irreconcilable with the three realms god realm. Evidence? There's no evidence. Tianyun said calmly, "I'm just saying that I'm relying on my intuition. I can sense the evil emperor's aura from your body. I don't have any proof." You don't have any evidence, yet you're still making irresponsible remarks. Yao Yuli flew into a rage and said, "What do you take this place for? Food can be eaten indiscriminately, but words can't be said indiscriminately. You slandered me. If you don't give me an explanation today, don't even think about leaving. Even if you're the lord of the Tianyun region, you have to stay here. Otherwise, people will think that the medicine god shrine is really weak." In a few words, he turned the spearhead to Tianyun, which was really sharp. Especially the last sentence, it stung their hearts. For a long time, the outside world had an extremely bad evaluation of the medicine god shrine. After all, the evil spirit race had invaded for so long, but they didn't do anything and were even called cowards. If people said that the reason why the medicine god shrine remained neutral was that they were too weak, it would be even more shameful, which was not the result they wanted. Etienne's expression was indifferent. "I don't have any evidence, but I can check your soul. If not only will I give you the reincarnation grass with both hands, but I will also let the three realms god realm become your vassal." What do you think of that? Originally, some elders wanted to say a few more words, but when they heard Etienne's words, they were all dumbfounded. If not, then they would really get a lot of things. Not only the reincarnation grass, but also the three realms god realm. This was really a big deal. Not to mention anything else, just the reincarnation grass alone was enough to pay the price. No matter what, this thing was extremely precious. It was not a big deal to check the condition of the soul. Third elder, please examine it. If it's not, then we'll have made a huge profit. In theory, just the reincarnation grass alone is worth paying a corresponding price. They all nodded. Originally, they were a little suspicious of the third elder, but now they all turned their attention to the reward. Although they suspected Yao Yuli, they still didn't believe that Yao Yuli was controlled by the evil emperor. Yao Yuli's expression immediately became ugly. He shouted, "How can this be? This is a matter of dignity. How can we put down our dignity just because of the reincarnation grass? You can do it, but I can't. The ancestors have said before that we can have no resources, but we can't have no dignity." Yao Yuli's words made sense. At the end of the day, he was unwilling to let his soul be checked. All the elders exchanged glances and agreed with one another. Searching one's soul was indeed very rude. Is it really because of your dignity, or are you really controlled? Tianyun sneered. Now is not a matter of dignity, but whether my words are right or not. Don't fool people with these words. Let the drug deity check it. If not, I will pay the corresponding price. Tianyun's words immediately woke up the elders present. The point was indeed to check whether Yao Yuli was controlled, not the problem of dignity. If they didn't check it, then there was a ghost. Well, let me check it. At this time, a figure walked in from outside the door. This person was Little Medicine Fairy's father, the drug deity. The drug deity walked out of the passage with an indifferent expression, but his eyes were fixed on Yao Yuli. The drug deity hadn't appeared for so long, not because he was busy, but because he had been watching from the side. Now that this situation had occurred, he had to stand up. He was even more shocked about the sound transmission array. He didn't expect to find it after praying for so long. Medicine God, Temple Master. Even you don't believe me? Yao Yuli shouted hysterically. This is not a matter of believing or not, but a matter of making the Tianyin domain Lord give up. Can't you let me check it? The drug deity stared at him with a burning gaze. He had some doubts in his heart. When he saw the sound transmission array, he had doubts. Even if Tianyin didn't say it, the drug deity wanted to check it. Yao Yuli closed his eyes in pain. After a moment, he slowly opened his eyes and said, "Come on, I hope that after the check, the medicine God Temple Master will give me justice. And the Tianyin domain Lord, I hope you can remember your promise." Chapter 1766. Yao Yuli directly stood to the side and motioned for the drug god to come and investigate. He looked sanctimonious and was not afraid of inspection at all. He had a feeling that he was innocent and was not afraid of anyone's inspection. Just now, he had been refusing as if it was for his own dignity. This was enough to deceive the other elders, but it was meaningless to Tianyin. The appraisal I would not be the least bit false. No matter how deep it was hidden, it could be detected. If he could not detect it, there was only one possibility, and that was that his level was not high enough. Now, that his level was maxed out, if he could not even see this, then he was not a product of this world. Don't worry, as long as it's not, I will fulfill my promise. You can rest assured about this. Tianyin smiled faintly. He could not fulfill his promise. After all, he would not make a mistake. Then, he motioned for the drug god to go forward and investigate. Everything was for the drug god to investigate. If the drug god chose to cover up, then he had nothing to say. If he chose to cover up, then he would not fulfill his promise and would personally verify it. Of course, he believed that the drug god would never cover up. How could he cover up such a big traitor here? Unless the drug god was also from the evil spirit race. However, the appraisal I did not show that he was from the evil spirit race. Third elder, if you really are fine, I will seek justice for you. The drug god slowly walked in the direction of the third elder. The other elders nodded silently. If it was really not, then they would also stand up for the third elder. It was just that they had to get an explanation now. Tianyin's previous judgment was too accurate. He could even sense the sound transmission array. They just did not know if it was accurate this time. If it was accurate, then the drug god came in front of the third elder and reached out to grab the third elder's head. To investigate the state of the soul, he naturally had to touch the head. When he was about to grab it, Yao Yuli suddenly showed a ferocious expression and roared, "Go to hell!" In the next second, Yao Yuli's body rapidly expanded, and the power that had long been compressed to the extreme was released from his body. Boom! A terrifying energy explosion swept out in all directions, and the first to bear the brunt was the drug god. The closer he was, the more he had to bear. Everything happened so suddenly that almost no one could react, including Tianyin. Tianyin's appraisal, I was able to see it in advance, but Yao Yuli's self-detonation didn't even need to accumulate energy. It could erupt immediately. This was most likely a great formation that had been buried long ago. It could instantly trigger its strongest effect and detonate him. Without a doubt, this was a move that he would use when he was seen through. In any case, if he were to be caught, he would be killed, tortured, or soul-searched. Thus, he might as well just bury the formation in his body. Before he was caught, he would immediately self-destruct. At that moment, Tianyin reacted quickly and cast his strongest skill, super healing for all and invincibility for himself. At the same time, he grabbed the little medicine fairy and dodged to the side. Of course, he couldn't hide too far away and could only use his body to block for the little medicine fairy. As for the others, he couldn't block it and could only help the little medicine fairy block it. After all, the little medicine fairy was the closest to him, and her cultivation was relatively low, so her defense was weaker. And the most crucial point was that she was important enough. Protecting the little medicine fairy was equivalent to an absolute alliance. Seal. The drug god's speed was equally astonishing. With a backhand slap, a terrifying power was released from his body and enveloped Yao Yuli's body. However, he wasn't fully prepared. The power that had just been sealed was instantly broken, and the released power continued to sweep out in all directions. The rest of the elders had a few more seconds to react and immediately released their strongest defense to block this wave of attack. However, the power of this explosion was too strong. It was unknown how many energy crystals the evil emperor had buried in Yao Yuli's body. After the explosion, the most terrifying effect was released in one go, and it was definitely equivalent to the strongest attack of a demigod emperor. This was with a very strong area of effect, and the overall power was even more terrifying. The drug god, who was standing at the front, was directly blown away, and the situation was unknown. As for the other elders, even if they raised their defenses, their shields were blasted open, and they were sent flying in all directions. Obviously, this was no longer the power of an ordinary self-explosion. With the addition of the hidden power inside, the effect was naturally different. It was a pity that they couldn't set up a formation here, or the power would be even more terrifying. Etianyan directly used his body to block it, and, along with the terrifying explosion, he was all blocked outside. The power of this explosion was not bad, but it was within the heavenly god level, not above the heavenly god level. Therefore, they were all blocked outside. The little medicine fairy was well protected, and she was not affected by this terrifying power. After a long time, the explosion finally subsided. There were a few more cracks inside the hall, but overall there was not much of a problem. This medicine god temple had been reinforced, and it was reinforced by a god emperor. The power of this explosion was very terrifying, but against a strong reinforcement, it could only cause a few more cracks, and nothing was damaged. As for the statue, there was also no problem. The ancestor statue must have been reinforced in all kinds of ways, so there was naturally no problem. Just like the temple, there were a few more small cracks, but not too big. On the other hand, many elders were blasted out, and basically all were injured. As for the drug god, half of his body was blown up. His cultivation was very strong, but without special preparation, half of his body was still blown up. Fortunately, it was not a big problem to be able to recover from this. In particular, the super strong healing light descended and quickly healed their injuries. The drug god's body recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. The drug god's recovery ability was already terrifying, not to mention the addition of Etianyan's healing power. Father, after the little medicine fairy reacted, she hurriedly ran to the drug god's side to check on her father's injuries. Etianyan looked around and noticed that only he and the little medicine fairy were still standing in the room. The rest were all lying on the ground, looking a little too horrible to look at. Fortunately, only a small number were seriously injured. After all, most of the damage was taken by the drug god. At that moment, the drug god knew that he had to bear the damage, or the little medicine fairy behind him would be injured. However, Etianyan protected him better. Not to mention being injured, not even a hair on his body was injured. Chapter 1767. The violent explosion overturned the place and sent many of the disciples flying backward. Just a slight fluctuation was enough to send those disciples who were climbing the stairway to heaven flying down. Especially from the high stairs, they rolled down fiercely, looking very embarrassed. Fortunately, there was no serious situation. After all, it was just a little aftermath. As for those who were a little further away, they could feel the terrible explosion, which made them look at the medicine god temple in shock. Most people clearly felt a fierce vibration under their feet, but they didn't know what happened. What's going on? Why is there such a violent energy fluctuation coming from the medicine god temple? What happened over there? Yes, what's going on? But we can't go up and find out. What happened? Let's go back and see. Those who could go back immediately, those who couldn't go up could only stay below the medicine god temple and watch the situation. In the medicine god temple, the situation has become very bad. One by one, The elders got up from the ground. They're not worried about their injuries now. More, their faces are extremely ugly. It can be said that they're extremely ugly. Their hearts are also extremely angry. That is an extreme kind of anger toward the evil spirit race. Although it was not found out in the end, Yao Yuli directly exploded. There is no need to explain anything. It is clear that he was controlled and possessed. If not, why did Yao Yuli self-destruct? Moreover, he deliberately waited for the drug god to come over, and then exploded fiercely, blowing the drug god away. It is very obvious that the evil emperor knows that he can't escape. With so many elders and the drug god here, it is impossible to escape. Even if his original body is here, I am afraid that it will be difficult to escape. With so many experts here, how can he escape alone? For this reason, he immediately chose to self-destruct before destroying this body. He must seriously injure the drug god. A little wrong. Etianyan shook his head. His plan was to surround a little more elders, so that the evil emperor can't escape even if he has wings. Who knew that the evil emperor had already prepared to self-destruct, injuring many elders? Of course, they were only injured. None of them died, thanks to the protection of the drug god. Otherwise, several elders would have been killed. After all, most people did not react, thinking that Yao Yuli was really very innocent. There would be no problem. Who knew that there was really a problem? If the drug god hadn't fought for those few seconds, they would have been finished. However, if Etianyan hadn't gathered so many elders, the vile emperor would have been able to escape. Perhaps he would have been able to escape from this region and self-detonate. That would have been fun. The elders here could still hold on for a while. The disciples outside were all annihilated in the face of such a terrifying explosion. Therefore, such a situation was still within the acceptable range. Evil spirit race, I will kill you. I never thought that I would have been deceived by the evil spirit race for so long. It's all that damned evil spirit race bastard. The elders roared hysterically one after another, but it was meaningless. In their eyes, they were like defeated soldiers. Nothing more than complaints. After being toyed with for so long, it was already enough of a failure. Most importantly, they had always believed in the divine decree of their ancestor, making them think that their ancestor was always by their side, who knew that everything was fake and that it was just a sinister method of the evil emperor. I really didn't expect that my wisdom would be destroyed in an instant. The medicine god leaned against the wall, his expression filled with a sense of vicissitudes, and even more so a sense of frustration. All along, he had followed his ancestors' instructions and remained neutral. Now, it seemed that they were too naive. They didn't even know that their own elders were being controlled. This was undoubtedly the biggest failure, a complete failure. At this time, the medicine god no longer wanted to be the hallmaster. He felt that he no longer had the qualifications to be the hallmaster. He was inferior to his own daughter. In my opinion, you no longer have the qualifications to be the hallmaster. This position of hallmaster should be handed over to you. Siener, you are still a little more sensible. Even if the ancestor had such an order, you still chose to refute it. You are much bolder than me. I also want to send out experts to fight and exterminate those evil spirit race. The medicine god shook his head and sighed, feeling a little sad. In his heart, he did indeed want to bring all the experts out to exterminate the evil spirit race. However, the ancestor had passed down a divine decree, saying that they could not participate in the battle and could only remain neutral. At that time, how aggrieved was his heart, but in the face of the ancestor's divine decree, he could only choose to obey. Father, don't talk nonsense. You have been leading the medicine god temple well. If you hand it over to Siener, she will definitely not manage it as well as you. Siener knows that you are very sad, but things have already happened, and the medicine god temple needs your leadership to make up for the mistakes of the past. The little medicine fairy did not choose to become the hallmaster. She knew that she was not mature enough. The current medicine god temple still needed the medicine god to oversee it, and even more needed him to preside over the overall situation. The mistakes of the past were in the past, and it was not too late to make up for it now. Sigh, The medicine god sighed deeply again, turning his head to look at Tianyun, who was constantly treating them. His eyes were filled with gratitude. If it wasn't for him, I'm afraid we would really be finished, and it would have ended in my hands. If the ancestor really comes back, even if I die, I will not be able to face the ancestor. If it wasn't for Tianyun discovering the situation in advance, they would have continued to make a big mistake. In other words, the medicine god temple had completely become the evil spirit race's possession. The second battle of the divine emperors was coming, and if they still did not make a move, it was very likely that the evil spirit race would completely occupy this place. At that time, the medicine god temple would be meat on the chopping board, at their mercy. Yes, it's all his help. We owe him a great favor. The little medicine fairy now looked at Tianyun in a completely different way. Her previous dissatisfaction with Tianyun's infiltration had long since disappeared, replaced by gratitude. This was basically a life-saving grace, and it was the grace of saving the entire medicine god temple. After all, if they continued to let it go, the evil emperor would gradually control this place and use the statue to convey divine decrees to them. When the war between the divine emperors began, they would also give them orders to go out and kill other divine realms. At that time, they would have to obey the orders of their ancestors, and they would certainly have to obey. There was no way to resist. It could be said that Tianyun had changed everything, and changed everything about the medicine god temple in the future. Chapter 1768. While Tianyun was healing them, the evil emperor let out a scream. The evil emperor covered his head and slammed into the wall. With a bang, a large part of the wall collapsed, giving the other evil spirit gods a fright. The evil emperor suddenly slammed into the wall. It was very strange. Lord Evil Emperor, what's going on? They gathered around, not knowing what had happened. Damn it, we lost the medicine god temple. The evil emperor crawled up from the ground and covered his head with one hand. His face was frighteningly pale. It must be very painful to lose a part of one's soul, as if one's body had been torn into several pieces. We lost the medicine god temple. The evil spirit gods' faces changed. The medicine god temple was a big trump card for them, but now it was gone. It was a big loss. Yes, we lost the medicine god temple. It's the Tianyun Lord's fault again. Why does this guy always ruin my plans? It was the Heaven Creator's plan, and now it's the medicine god temple's turn. The evil emperor slapped the damaged wall next to him. With a bang, another large part of the wall collapsed. I lost such a powerful trump card. I wanted to ask them to help me clean up the other divine realms. I didn't expect it to be the Tianyun Lord. The other evil spirit gods were also furious. Tianyun had ruined so many of their plans. Huan Mingyue was kidnapped, the Heaven Creators were rescued, and the Medicine God Temple's plan was ruined. These were all powerful trump cards, but they were all gone. The Medicine God Temple was their trump card. It could make them fight each other while the evil spirit race was fine. It was really a good deal. However, Tianyun had freed the evil emperor a little later. The evil emperor wanted to rush to the divine realm of the three realms. However, the divine realm of the three realms had a shield, so he couldn't go in. He could only watch from the outside. Lord Evil Emperor, what should we do? The Medicine God Hall is one of our trump cards, a trump card that we can use to overturn them. Only then will we be able to conquer them with ease. The evil spirit god said. The evil emperor's gaze was extremely cold, and his pale face looked even more ferocious and terrifying. Evil Emperor looked at the door outside and said coldly, "Let's continue with the plan. We were originally just a little bit away from success. Who knew that something like this would happen? Once everything is set up, we will immediately begin the next round, the God Emperor battle. I will lead my race and bathe this world in blood. When that time comes, only the three realms God realm will be left. I don't believe that the shield will always be there. Yes, your majesty." One by one, they immediately went to make preparations and busied themselves with various matters. The great battle was about to begin. With Tianyun's help, The elders recovered one by one, and all of them were very grateful to Etionyan. It could even be said that they almost knelt down in gratitude. Etionyan had helped them see through such a traitor. How could they not be grateful? Heavenly Cloud, Territorial Lord, please come in. The drug god had recovered. He got up and came to Etionyan's side, motioning for him to walk into the main hall. Etionyan nodded his head and followed them into the room. The drug god had now recovered more than half of his state. Although he had not fully recovered, it was not difficult for him to recover according to his own ability. However, the anger and grief in his heart now were more painful and more difficult to cure than these injuries. After entering the main hall with him, the other elders also came in. Other than a few who were more seriously injured, the rest followed him in. Every one of them had a grave expression on their faces, and they hadn't said a word since they came in. When entering the main hall, after the drug god sat down, he motioned for Etionyan to sit down as well. When the drug god sat down, the rest of the elders followed suit, which was obviously a kind of respect for Etionyan. This time, the Medicine God Temple is grateful to Heavenly Cloud, Territorial Lord, for helping to see through the evil Emperor's trick. Otherwise, we would have made more mistakes. When the God Emperor battle begins, I am afraid that we will be used as weapons. The drug god said with a serious expression, Heavenly Cloud, Territorial Lord, this time you save the entire Medicine God Temple. As long as you like something in our Medicine God Temple, you can take it as our reward. The drug god offered a sky-high reward. As long as it was not too excessive, he would give it to Etionyan. For example, taking away all the spiritual herbs was too much. Even if he saved the Medicine God Temple, he should not be so excessive. In fact, this time, I am not here for the reincarnation grass, but to form an alliance with the Medicine God Temple. Let's form an alliance and fight against the evil spirit race together, Etionyan said. I think there should be no difficulty in forming an alliance now, right? From today on, Heavenly Cloud Territorial Lord is our alliance leader, and the Medicine God Temple will follow his lead. As long as it is about the plan to fight against the evil spirit race, we will be the first to participate. The drug god immediately agreed and recognized Etionyan as the alliance leader. It was not that the drug god was too straightforward, but that they had the same goal, so there was nothing to talk about. They directly formed an alliance and fought against the evil spirit race together. The rest of the elders nodded one after another, indicating that they agreed with the result of this discussion. That's good. There's nothing else for the time being. Etionyan stood up, looked at them, and said, Next, it's up to you to deal with things on your own. I won't stay here. Heavenly Cloud Territorial Lord, you haven't chosen the reward yet. Whether it is a 10,000-year-old spiritual herb or a 100,000-year-old spiritual herb, as long as you like it, we can repay you. The drug god also stood up and said, That's not necessary. I know that helping you see through the evil emperor is equivalent to saving the entire Medicine God Temple. Etionyan said with a serious expression, Compared with this, I think you need these spiritual herbs more. After all, when the time comes, you will all have to contribute. If you really want to repay me, I hope you can refine more spiritual herbs and distribute them to other divine realms, so that the overall strength can be improved. 2 rays of light burst out of the drug god's eyes, and he looked at him and said in a low voice, Good. Since the alliance leader has said so, we will listen to the alliance leader's instructions. We will start to refine spiritual herbs on a large scale now, and the distribution will still be decided by the alliance leader. As for the other vassal forces, we will also join them, and we will also follow the orders of the alliance leader. We will not obey other orders. The Medicine God Temple had its own pride. Even if they did something wrong, they would only make up for it themselves, instead of apologizing to other forces one by one. Chapter 1769. Seeing the alchemy god's determination, Etionyan naturally didn't say anything else. He nodded and said, Although you have to listen to my instructions, I won't give you too many instructions most of the time. Just follow your own decisions. I won't take away the authority that belongs to you. What they were most worried about was being completely controlled when they joined the alliance. This was undoubtedly the worst part. Now that Etionyan said this, they felt a bit more at ease. If Etionyan was extremely overbearing and controlled everything by himself, then that was obviously not what they needed. Now that Etionyan said this, they felt at ease. We are very grateful that the Alliance Master is so understanding. The alchemy god smiled with relief. He thought for a moment and said, "Oh right, we are all controlled by the heretical emperor. I don't know if the subordinate forces are also controlled by the heretical emperor. Alliance Master, I'll have to trouble you to go to their places and help investigate. Is that possible?" "I'm very happy to do so. In fact, my allies have all asked me to investigate them, and I've found many who are being controlled. This is a very tricky problem that needs to be solved." Etionya nodded. Even if they didn't ask, he would still want to help solve it. After all, this was a major issue. If an elder was being controlled, it would be quite serious. Then this will be, let me take him there. I'll also explain the situation here to them and let them join the alliance. At this time, the little medicine fairy stood up and planned to personally take Etionyan to those forces. The alchemy god glanced at his daughter and finally nodded. "All right, you will lead the Alliance Master there." Etionyan also looked at the little medicine fairy. He originally thought that the little medicine fairy would stay here and be busy with various things. He didn't expect that she would personally take him to the other forces. In fact, this matter could be handled by any elder, but for the little medicine fairy to personally take action was a bit too much. However, since the alchemy god didn't have any objections, then he didn't either. In any case, it didn't matter who accompanied him. Soon, the situation here was over. Since the little medicine fairy didn't have anything else to do, they could immediately set off. After all, it would take a long time for so many forces to make a round trip. Fortunately, the god of Medicine Temple had set up a teleportation array with them, so it was relatively easy for them to go there. They didn't need to fly there one by one, which would really waste a lot of time. "I didn't expect that you would personally bring me there. Actually, other people can come too," Etionyan said as he walked with Little Medicine Fairy. "I came out for my own sake," Yizichin said. Little Medicine Fairy took a deep breath and said with a smile, "The Medicine God Temple has completely changed. I have to relax no matter what. Years of repression are finally over. Although there is a new hatred, at least it is not the old Medicine God Temple. It seems that you're going to accompany me out for a stroll," Etionyan said with a smile. "Of course, I plan to take a look at your faction. Would you be willing?" The Little Medicine Fairy revealed an enchanting smile. "No problem. As long as you like, you can stay as long as you want." Etionyan shrugged. He couldn't wait for the Little Medicine Fairy to live in the divine realm of the three realms. With her medicine god body, it would be absolutely amazing to cultivate spirit medicines. "That's an exaggeration, but I'm really grateful to you. I'm very sorry for my rudeness before." The Little Medicine Fairy stopped and slightly squatted in front of him to express her apology. Etionyan reached out to stop her from squatting down. He said with a smile, "There's no need to be like this. I sneaked in and it's still rude. We're even. There's no need to apologize." "No, this is completely different. Please accept my apology, Alliance Master." The Little Medicine Fairy insisted on squatting down and finally knelt in front of Etionyan as an apology. This was the greatest apology etiquette. A dignified heavenly deity doing this was naturally a very sincere apology. Etionyan was quite helpless and could only accept her apology. He knew that if he didn't accept, the Little Medicine Fairy wouldn't give up. After apologizing, she stood up again and said with a stern expression, "It's about time. We should go check them one by one and get rid of them one by one." Private matters were over, so it was time for official matters. Etionyan nodded. He hoped that these powers wouldn't be too serious. Shortly after, the two of them went to the nearest power and easily arrived through the transportation formation. Then they began to check. They discovered that the power of this power was actually not controlled. After informing the domain lord of this place about the alliance, they went to the next one. After checking all of them, they discovered that none of them were controlled. Then, They checked all of them one by one. After checking all of them, they discovered that none of them were controlled. They were completely clean, and there were no important areas that were controlled. After Little Medicine Fairy brought Etienne to check all of the powers, she couldn't help but ask, is there really not a single one? There really isn't a single one. None of them were controlled. Etienne was also a little surprised. He didn't expect that the heretical emperor didn't do anything. That's really strange. I thought there would be a lot of people who were controlled. I was going to get rid of them all. Little Medicine Fairy shook her head. This must be because the heretical emperor thinks that controlling the medicine temple is enough. After all, they all follow you. If you don't do anything, they won't do anything. It's like they don't control those elders at all. Etienne thought for a moment and said his guess. So he didn't bother to control them, which led to this situation. Little Medicine Fairy thought for a moment and felt that it really made some sense. The medicine temple's order was the key, so it was meaningless to control others. As for the other forces in the divine realm, it was different. They were all independent existences and needed to be controlled. On the other hand, there was no need to control any of these forces. Controlling the medicine temple was equivalent to controlling them all. However, Etienne had destroyed the heretical emperor's plan. It seems so. If you hadn't come in time, these forces that followed us would have really suffered together. Little Medicine Fairy was a little scared. When she thought about it carefully, she was really a little scared. When the war broke out, it was mutual suicide. They were all forces in the same world. Although they were different forces, when facing foreign enemies, they were still on the same side. It was really tragic for their own people to fight their own people. Later, they were ruthlessly killed by the evil spirit race. By the time they realized it, it was already too late. At least in the first battle of the God Emperors, this situation didn't happen. Etienne also felt a little lucky. Chapter 1770. After inspecting all the factions, Etienne brought the Little Medicine Fairy back to the Three Realms Sacred Realm. The Little Medicine Fairy was not in a hurry to return. She planned to go to the Three Realms Sacred Realm with Etienne to see this mysterious existence. The Three Realms Sacred Realm was too famous, so much so that they all wanted to see the truth. They wanted to see what the situation was like inside the Three Realms Sacred Realm. It was blessed by the heavens. Even the heretical emperor had suffered a setback, and a mysterious existence like Etienne had appeared. Thus, they all wanted to know about the Three Realms Sacred Realm, including the Little Medicine Fairy. This was also the reason why she came. She wanted to see what the Three Realms Sacred Realm was like. At the same time, it was also a way to relax. She did not want to return to the Sacred Medicine Temple for the time being. That place had given her too much pressure. Under Etienne's lead, they soon arrived at the Three Realms Sacred Realm. After bringing them in, the Little Medicine Fairy immediately wandered around, wanting to see everything inside out. As the Three Realms Sacred Realm was not very big, they could see everything in a short time. After looking around, the Little Medicine Fairy sighed. It seems that there is not much difference between the Three Realms Sacred Realm. It is even worse than some of the Rank 4 Sacred Realms. Even the Rank 5 Sacred Realms are not that far off. After saying this, the Little Medicine Fairy said awkwardly, "Sorry, I have always been too talkative, don't mind it. I am very clear about the Three Realms Sacred Realm situation, but I'm already very satisfied with the steady improvement. I just need to slowly improve." Etienne smiled lightly and said, "I have so many powerful helpers and so many powerful allies. It is already very good to have such achievements." Of course, Etienne knew about the Three Realms Sacred Realm situation. Even if they completed the mission and reached the Rank 4 Sacred Realm, there was still a huge gap between them and the other Rank 4 Sacred Realms. The gap was not in terms of experts, but in the cultivation environment and the layout of the various formations. The key was still the average cultivation of the disciples. They had to at least reach a certain level. Now that Etienne's side had low cultivation levels, Little Medicine Fairy would naturally say that they were weak. Indeed, the Sky Creator Clan and the Divine Spirit Clan are here to support you. As long as you have enough time, the three-realm celestial realm will definitely be able to shake the world. The little medicine fairy could also see it, but she was currently in a weakened state. Relying on a few experts was indeed very ferocious, but if those experts left, the ones left would be the weaker ones. It would be impossible for them to resist the experts. As a result, he still needed a lot of time to upgrade the three realms. For the time being, it was impossible to do so. Eteonyan knew this very well, and so did Shiyun and the rest. What they lacked the most right now was not resources but time. That was how it was when one's foundation was too weak. Compared to those newly ascended factions, the three realms' celestial territory's growth rate was already quite terrifying. It could even be described as shocking. However, at first glance, those experts felt that he was very ordinary. He wasn't as strong as they had imagined. In the outside world, it was rumored that there were a large number of experts in the three realms' divine realm. Otherwise, how could the evil emperor be defeated? In fact, it was very weak. It could only be regarded as a very ordinary force. It should be said that there were a lot of experts, but they were all experts who joined, not the original experts. Eteonyan smiled slightly. Looking at the many cultivators below, he was very pleased. Even if the current situation was relatively ordinary, for him, this was his force. No matter how weak it was founded by him. From the initial Jade Palace to the current level, it was already quite amazing. If it was any other force, it would be impossible to improve so quickly in such a short period of time. At most, it could only improve by a small level. What heavenly master, what heavenly god, it was impossible. Although the three realms' divine realm could only be formed by others joining, at least it was qualified to let other experts join. Hey, you have a lot of medicine fields here. Little Medicine Fairy noticed that there were a lot of medicine fields on Eteonyan's side. These medicine fields were all managed by Yu Chui, and the overall situation was very good. It's not as good as Little Medicine Fairy, but it's much better than most of the Little Medicine apprentices. Yes, but compared to the Medicine God Temple, it's far worse. Eteonyan said with a smile. If you could compare to our Medicine God Temple, you would have already reached the level of 5th grade God Realm. Little Medicine Fairy rolled her eyes at him, then immediately smiled and said, "How about this? Let me help you. How about it?" Ow! Eteonyan narrowed his eyes. "I'll help you a little transform the medicine field here, so that you can cultivate spirit herbs with twice the result with half the effort." Little Medicine Fairy flew down with a smile, and without waiting for Eteonyan's permission, she has already thrown several kinds of 10,000 years old spirit herbs into the medicine field one after another. They were a little reluctant, but under Little Medicine Fairy's coercion, they could only pour their essence into the medicine field, and at the same time constantly transform the condition of the medicine field here. In the blink of an eye, this area of the medicine field instantly emitted light. The spirit herbs above began to reveal a faint luster, looking full of vitality. It was as if this medicine field had suddenly risen by several levels, and the effects were very different. With a single glance, Eteonyan knew that the overall quality of the medicine field was rising at a rapid pace. In the future, the medicine field's effects would be doubled with half the effort. The time needed to cultivate the spirit herbs would be greatly reduced. However, this effect would only last for a short period of time, and it wouldn't be permanent. After all, this was only the effect of a few 10,000 years old spirit herbs, which was equivalent to pouring their essence into the medicine field. This way, the spirit herbs could absorb it bit by bit. But after the spirit herbs were absorbed, the medicine field would return to its original state, and there wouldn't be such an effect. For Eteonyan, at least for this period of time, he could greatly increase the growth of the spirit herbs. "Many thanks, Little Medicine Fairy," Eteonyan said gratefully. "No need to be so polite. It's just a small matter." Little Medicine Fairy said with a smile. "If you can stay here forever, that would be great. My three realms deity realm will immediately improve by a lot." Eteonyan casually made a joke. It's impossible to stay here forever. After all, there is still the medicine temple to manage. but I can come and help you manage the medicine field from time to time. Little medicine fairy continued to speak, which made Etionyan happy. It would be great if she could come here once in a while. If that's the case, that would be great. Etionyan's eyes lit up. He knew that little medicine fairy's promise was tantamount to repaying him in disguise. Chapter 1771. Completed special quest, win over medicine god temple. Received 100,000 compressed crazy point. Completed divine realm unification quest. Received I am the alliance leader title. I'm the alliance leader. When leading many allies to attack, the overall morale will be doubled, combat power will be doubled, and healing effect will be doubled. At this time, the special quest was finally completed, and he received a series of rewards. The effect of this title is not bad. Etionyan's eyes lit up. Although it's only a twofold increase, it seems a bit insignificant. He has been increasing his cultivation by dozens of times. Only a twofold increase is obviously not enough, but this is the overall effect. It's different. It means that when he attacks with dozens of divine realm forces, these dozens of divine realm forces will have this effect. How can it not be terrifying? It is basically equivalent to doubling the effect. Next, little medicine fairy began to busy herself. She was responsible for a little rest of the medicine field, and also taught Yu Chui how to cultivate the medicine field. Compared to Yu Chui, little medicine fairy is naturally more capable. She can definitely manage the medicine field very well. If I can really live here, it will really be a leap. Etionyan looked at the busy little medicine fairy. The effect of the medicine god's body immediately manifested here. The spirit herbs are dancing. They are very welcome to little medicine fairy. This made Etionyan a bit envious. If he can have the medicine god's body, then he can take care of these spirit herbs. It will be a heaven-defying thing. All under his control. Think about it carefully. It is a bit scary. When he wanted to continue to observe, suddenly a message came. His face changed slightly and quickly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in the special room, and naturally, he saw Huan Mingyue's cold eyes. Did you succeed? Etionyan was a little surprised. The overall time is less than 50 years. It has been successfully broken. It surprised him a bit. This time is beyond the expected time. Yes, it has been successfully broken. I completely got rid of that guy's control. Huan Mingyue did not have the slightest joy. This is not something to be happy about. From birth until now, there is nothing to be happy about, as if living in this world is a kind of pain. Looks like you can work with the sky creators to fill up the barrier. Etionyan was very happy that Huan Mingyue could break free from the control. This way, they could fight together. That's not a problem, but there's a bigger problem now. Huan Mingyue said in a deep voice. After I broke it completely, I discovered that a portion of my memories had been sealed. Only by breaking it can I unlock all of my memories, the memories that were sealed by that guy. After hearing this, Etionyan's expression became solemn. What is it? Right now, the evil emperor is just a small clone. His real body is sealed in a hidden region. Because the restrictions here are too strong, a body was created. Its true power is not inferior to the evil spirits. In fact, it is even stronger than the evil spirits. When Huan Mingyue said this, Etionyan's expression became even more serious. As expected, this was a very serious matter. He did not expect that the evil emperor he had been fighting against was just a clone. The clone was already so terrifying. What would the real body be like? Even stronger than the evil spirits. Etionyan recalled the power of the evil spirit's pearl. Just one pearl was already very terrifying. If all of them were gathered together, it would definitely be even more terrifying. Now that the evil emperor was even stronger than the evil spirits, wouldn't that be a huge crisis? Yes, even stronger than the evil spirits. Now, they're making arrangements in all aspects to suppress the power of this world so that his real body can appear. Then, the real battle between God emperors will begin, Huan Mingyue said in a deep voice. Does that mean that the evil spirits are not going to save them? Etionyan frowned. They will definitely save them, but I don't know when they will act. Now that I have recovered my memories, This is all I can remember. That power is really very terrifying. Huan Mingyue's expression was serious. This was not something that could be done casually. Then do you know where it is sealed? Etienne's gaze was fierce. Destroying it in advance had always been his plan. I don't know. It's just a very short memory. I can only say that they did not clean it enough. It seems that this guy does not even want the people around him to know where his real body is. Huan Mingyue shook his head. If only he could know. It would be best if he could destroy it before it descended. No wonder the evil emperor has always been so confident. So this is his confidence. Etienne thought of the evil emperor's anger and all the things he had endured. It seemed that everything was for the sake of waiting for his real body to appear. There was too little meaning to explode now. His real body could not come out. If they fought, the difficulty would greatly increase. Once his real body came out, he would not dare to say that he could completely suppress them, but at least his chances of winning would greatly increase. Yes, this is his confidence, the confidence to conquer this world. Huan Mingyue said in a deep voice. However, we still have to be wary of the situation with the evil spirit's pearl. The evil spirits are a big problem in the end. If it is snatched away, it will be a very troublesome problem. The evil emperor's real body is already troublesome enough. If the two of them join forces, Etienne nodded. He did not even need to think about it to know how terrifying it was. Originally, the evil spirits were enough to make them suffer. Now that there was the evil emperor, it was definitely heaven-defying. Perhaps the other parts will be snatched away, but mine will not be snatched away. Etienne was confident that he could protect the evil spirit's pearl. As for the other forces, it was really hard to say. Just as he was about to continue speaking, an urgent news came. Heaven Cultivation God Realm and Yuelong God Realm were attacked by the evil spirit race. They have already started to openly snatch it. These two God Realms both had the evil spirit's pearl. Now that they were being attacked, there was no doubt that they were targeting the evil spirit's pearl. What's wrong? Huan Mingyue immediately realized something from Etienne's expression. Could it be that they have started to attack? Yes, let's hurry over and provide reinforcements. I do not expect them to move so quickly. It seems like the battle between the God Emperors is really about to start. Etienne's expression was grim. He immediately moved out with Huan Mingyue. Then, he immediately gave orders to the other powerful beings to prepare for reinforcements and immediately head over to the two God realms to provide reinforcements. In an instant, the Heaven Creator race and the other God realms were all mobilized. When the other God realms received the request for reinforcements, they immediately set off to provide reinforcements. Chapter 1772. Etienne immediately brought a group of experts and instantly arrived at Heaven Cultivation God Realm. The defense of Heaven Cultivation God Realm is worse than Yuelong God Realm, so he brought people to support them first. As for Yuelong God Realm, the other God Realm lords will immediately bring people to support them. Therefore, there is no need to worry about Yuelong God Realm not having support. When he was teleported to the Heaven Cultivation Divine Realm, he immediately saw a large number of evil spirit race crazily attacking the Heaven Cultivation Divine Realm. Among them, a large number of evil god army turned into giant evil gods and attacked fiercely. Looking at the dense evil spirit race in front of them, it seems that it is really starting. This is something similar to Heavenly Divine Curtain. Etienne quickly noticed that this area is shrouded in dark energy, greatly enhancing their strength and weakening the strength of other cultivators. But compared to the real Heavenly Divine Curtain, it is a lot worse. The advantage is that the consumption is small, the coverage is large, and it can be improved a little. Etienne immediately released the experts he brought with him. When they came out, they were shocked when they saw the densely packed evil spirit race. The reinforcements had just arrived, and they immediately rushed over. But in such a short period of time, the periphery of the Heavenly Cultivation Celestial Realm had completely fallen into the enemy's hands. Now the evil spirit race has attacked the inner areas, and there are heavy casualties. These evil spirit races seemed to have gone mad, continuously attacking forward, completely unafraid of death. Such a crazy state scared them all. Even if the evil spirit race is crazy before, it is definitely not this crazy. One after another, not afraid of death. So much so that the heaven cultivation god realm was broken, completely unable to stop them. In the state inside, the heaven cultivation god realm suffered heavy casualties. Go! Etienne's eyes are cold, and without hesitation, he exchanged for a set of equipment for himself. Successfully exchanged for Godslayer's set. Godslayer's set requires heavenly god realm cultivation to equip. After wearing it, you can transform into Godslayer at any time, can control 10,000 best quality heavenly Tao level long swords, and can use Godslayer sword formation, consumes 100 crazy point, increase power by 5 times, increase range by 10 times. Note, this will reduce the durability of the weapon. The God-slaying set was the upgraded version of the previous version. It could control many Heaven Tao grade longswords. This way it could really achieve the effect of slaying gods. Although it wasn't an Empyrean spirit treasure, nor was it an Empyrean level sword, it was still at the Heavenly Tao level. Most importantly, it still depended on who the wielder was. The stronger the wielder was, even if it was a Heaven's Path sword, it would be able to slay gods and Buddhas alike. Summon him. Etienne waved his hand, and more than 10,000 Heaven's Path artifacts immediately gathered around him. Even if they had owners, it would be meaningless. They would be swiftly controlled by Etienne. This was the perverse part of a set. Even if it recognized its owner, it would be meaningless. It was still forcefully sucked over and turned into his own. This meant that if he continued to improve, even Empyrean spirit treasures would be forcibly summoned to attack him. No wonder he could only control Heavenly Tao level treasures even at this level. If he could control Empyrean spirit treasures, wouldn't that be heaven-defying? If the opponent's weapon was sucked over, what else could the opponent do? This was the power of it, making the opponent have no weapons to use. Of course, there were still many restrictions. For example, the set could only control sword-type treasures and not all levels of treasures. That would be heaven-defying. However, being able to control swords was already heaven-defying enough. Immediately, everyone saw a large number of swords gathering from all directions, surrounding Etienne. Kill! Etienne's eyes were cold, and he quickly sprinted forward. Along the way, the long sword kept flying, sweeping in all directions. Wherever it went, it was cut into countless pieces. Even the evil spirit race, who was not afraid of death, was scared out of his wits by the countless sword formations that were rushing over. Alliance leader is so powerful. They saw Etienne, who was leading the charge, killing countless evil spirit race along the way. It was as if he was harvesting leaks, wave after wave. In the blink of an eye, he had killed a wide bloody path. Even if those evil spirit races were not afraid of death, they did not want to be killed continuously. They could only flee to the side, but they did not flee outside. Instead, they fled inside. At the same time, they continued to choose the disciples of the divine realm to kill. It seemed that they had all been given a death order. They could only advance and not retreat. Even if they were all exterminated here, they could not retreat. Looks like none of you are afraid of death. Then let's all stay. Etienne did not know what their plan was, but as long as he saw the evil spirit race, he would not hesitate to control his flying sword to kill them. With a sweep, almost half of the countless evil spirit races were killed. If it was any other expert, even if they could easily kill them, they would still feel a little powerless against the many scattered evil spirit races. They would need more time to kill half of them. However, Etienne was like a harvester, and a large-scale harvester at that, sweeping away almost half of the evil spirit races in an instant. Under his control, tens of thousands of flying swords were like tens of thousands of sky sovereigns, crazily rushing out. No one could stop them. Die! A black light flickered, sweeping away a large group of evil spirit races. When the evil spirit races felt this power, they turned their heads in shock and saw a familiar face appearing in front of them. Empress, Empress, what responded to them was another ray of black light that blasted them into smithereens. Huan Mingyue also joined the battlefield. Facing these so-called clansmen, he mercilessly killed them. Although his methods were not as heaven-defying as Yi Tianyun's, he was still much more ruthless than other cultivators. It seemed like she really had an extremely deep hatred for the evil spirit race. He would kill as many as he could. At first, they thought that Huan Mingyue was an enemy. But now, it seemed that he was not an enemy, but one of their own. It was not only Huan Mingyue. Even the Heaven Creator clan were ruthless and merciless, killing without mercy. It could be said that they were a group of madmen who were crazy for revenge. Under this group of madmen's battle, the battle quickly ended. The evil spirit race was completely annihilated. Not a single evil spirit race was still alive. They had all been turned into pieces or corpses. Is it over? When Yi Tianyun saw the corpses all over the ground, he immediately felt that something was wrong. At that moment, he saw streams of black chi floating up from the corpses and enveloping the area. It was getting denser and denser, and at the same time, it was also enveloping other areas. Yi Tianyun's expression changed. This felt like the Heavenly God screen, but it was even more thorough. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.